It's race day at the furnace that is the Sepang circuit. World champion Michael Schumacher aiming to hit his opposition for 6 in Malaysia. Hello there, good morning to you all from our London studio. Michael Schumacher has won the last 5 races from pole. His Ferrari is at the sharp end again. Only Ascari, back in the 50s, has managed to win 6 in a row, more than 6 in a row, as the pole sitter. Tony, we poised for a piece of modern Grand Prix history?
It's on the cards, isn't it? Schumacher's a reluctant record breaker, however. He said he's just thinking about the next Grand Prix win. He wants as many wins as possible. But it was Nigel Mansell that did 5 successive wins in one season in '92. But in '94, Michael Schumacher did 4. So, and if he's heading for Ascari's record, which was 9, actually, over 52 and 53.
At one stage in qualifying, it looks as though younger brother Ralph might pip him for pole, but big brother then took command. A great battle of the brothers, and they both talked about their parents nervously watching things unfolding at home. Barrichello was in that battle as well. David Coulthard had started off with provisional pole, but at the end of it, the man with a bid in reserve and this wonderful Ferrari 2001 was Michael Schumacher. He's always been on pole here. The McLarens haven't got it right so far. Can they change it in the race? The race will be different. I'm sure the setup will be different, but Häkkinen has talked about having problems in the last sector of the circuit. Coulthard's talked about the car being difficult to drive. They have got problems, certainly in the qualifying setup. Maybe different in the race. Let's hope so. Only the fittest survive this race, prosper in this race. Well, David Coulthard, who is fit of the fittest, looked quite tired yesterday, and marathon man Jarno Trulli complained about not being able to breathe properly. So yes, they've got to be fit. It is going to be difficult, especially for the young drivers. Thanks, Tony. Let's just remind you how the grid looks. That all-red front row, Barrichello alongside Schumacher, Ralph, best qualifying performance of his career, Häkkinen 4th, Eddie Irvine down there in 12th in the Jaguar, and Bertie in the 2nd Jaguar 15th. I should tell you that Bernoldi is relegated to 22nd on the grid for a technical infringement. I'll tell you also, it's been raining over there in warm-up. Barrichello 14 seconds down on his qualifying time, but quickest in warm-up. It has dried up, but crikey, it's hot over there. 42 degrees on the track, 33 degrees the air temperature, 55% humidity. That is hot, hot, hot. Grand Prix, over 1.5 hours in the oven for the drivers. The race has been a car breaker over the last couple of years as well. Let's go to the front of the grid and join Martin Brundle.
Hello, Jim. Well, is it going to be Michael Schumacher's day? I haven't got time for a full grid walk today, but I'm going to just paint the picture for you. They spelt his name wrong on his board here on the pole position, but much, much worse than that. He's in the spare car. He had a problem, just got out of the pits on time, and here he is then in the spare car. I believe a lot of the setup in there was for Barrichello. They've already changed the nose here on the grid. So 4 metres behind him, albeit actually second place there, is on the right-hand side, the cleaner side of the grid, Rubens Barrichello. He has shown every ability this weekend to be just as fast as Michael Schumacher. James Allen will get into this a little bit more as we get underway in the race. Will they use Barrichello to keep the others back and let Michael go off on a 2-stop strategy and hold up the others? So here we are, Ralf Schumacher, stunning performance in qualifying, probably got a little bit less power in the race today, but how will those Michelins fare in the race? We haven't seen them up the sharp end yet. In Melbourne we didn't have this opportunity, and Ralf could very much be the surprise package of the day and one to watch. McLaren on their back foot. Häkkinen pulled something out in qualifying for this 4th place on the grid, but they're struggling. Damage limitation time today, I'm afraid, just like in qualifying yesterday. So can McLaren come through? I think they'll be stronger in the race than they were in qualifying. The Hondas in the Jordans and the BAR looking strong too. Coulthard with a lot to do. Irvine and Button a long way down. It could rain slightly later on in the day.
Thank you very much indeed, Martin. Last-minute preparations on those Ferraris. Barrichello, he has been going really well. Will Schumacher become the first driver ever to win 6 in a row from pole? First modern driver. Ralf Schumacher, he is right in the mix. Could he be on the verge of his first Grand Prix victory in that flying Williams? And what about Häkkinen or Coulthard? As Martin has been saying, they've been having problems. Will they find the sweet spot when it matters? Don't discount the Jordans as well. The Malaysian Grand Prix is imminent. You're with ITV's F1 team for the Malaysian Grand Prix, the second chapter in the 2001 championship. The futuristic, state-of-the-art Sepang circuit just outside Kuala Lumpur is the venue. Let's join Martin Brundle and, first of all, Murray Walker.
Thank you, Jim. And as you can see, the Sepang circuit at Kuala Lumpur is in prime condition. Now, people here who should know a lot better are writing McLaren off in Malaysia, but don't you believe it. Victor Hakkinen may be starting 4th, David Coulthard may be starting 8th, but they've overcome worse problems than that in the past. But would you believe this? Ferrari here on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday, and this morning, Michael Schumacher in the final half hour here makes a couple of practice starts before my very eyes, and then they say to him, something wrong with the car, Michael, you've got to get in the spare. Now, Michael is already under pressure. He may be starting from pole position there in his new helmet, incidentally, for the 6th time in succession, but he's only starting 1/10 of a second ahead of Rubens Barrichello in terms of qualifying times. Rubens is really getting the feel of things at Ferrari after his first season, and now Michael is having to settle down in the spare car, which had been set up for Rubens Barrichello. They've been making adjustments to the nose right up to the last second. And his brother Ralph behind him on the grid is going to be a real problem, because believe me, that BMW engine of his has got massive grunt. They can't keep up with it on the straights. And we've got this wonderful, wonderful new element in Formula One that you've heard about so much, but it's really coming to the boil now. The tyre war between Bridgestone on Ferrari and others, of course, and Michelin on Williams and others, of course. It's Michelin's return to Formula One racing in Australia, and they've really come good here with Ralf Schumacher 3rd on the grid, with his teammate, the incredible Juan Pablo Montoya, 6th on the grid, notwithstanding the fact that he lost virtually all his running on Friday, the first day of practice, because he had various problems with the car, and this circuit is entirely new to him. But he's overcome that. There he goes, 6th on the grid. It's an enormously demanding race. You've heard it from a lot of other people, but you're going to hear it from me again. 56 laps of here, and that's going to be over an hour and a half in these sweltering conditions. Now, I was literally dripping with sweat just walking from one side of the track to the other to get into the air-conditioned commentary box. I'm all right, but down there, those drivers, cooped up in their cockpits, are wearing 3-layer Nomex underwear, long johns, long-sleeved vests. They've got overalls on top of that. They've got the balaclava, they've got the helmet, they've got the gloves, the boots, and they're totally cooped in the cockpit for safety reasons. It's going to be about 50 degrees in the cockpit and massively difficult.
I thought I'd walked into the wrong commentary box, Mary. You were talking about underwear as I came through the door. I was on the wrong show there for a moment. Literally, I've just walked in, so I'm not absolutely clear what you were talking about.
I was just saying it's going to be jolly difficult for them because it's so swelteringly hot. Well, you're sweating. I mean, it's coming through your shirt.
I know, I'm absolutely saturated, literally just walking over from the other side of the racetrack. It's incredibly hot here. But as I said during qualifying yesterday, if you're watching that show, often when you get up and running and the adrenaline's flowing, you get a little bit of airflow through the car. You can lift your visor slightly and leave the top of your overalls undone. There's all sorts of devices in the car, some teams using dry ice, others, as was explained earlier, using balaclavas and anything they can to make the driver feel more comfortable. But it's a psychological thing as much as anything. Once you're underway, it's okay. When you're stopping and starting during qualifying and free practice, the heat just wells up and you just have to get out of the car sometimes. You can't cope with it. But I don't think they'll have a problem in the race. They're all pretty fit.
Well, two teams that may not be too unhappy about the heat here are BAR and Williams, both of whom were in Kyalami in South Africa, specifically testing under the very hot conditions applied in Australia here and are going to apply in Brazil. They've got all sorts of special ducts in the car to protect the delicate electronics, which can cause the engine and other things to shut down. But away we go on the formation lap, which enables you to see what this Sepang circuit is like. 3.4 miles altogether. The very slow turn 1, the right-hander coming up to the even slower turn 2. Then they start to accelerate right-handedly, building up to a speed of about 170, 180 miles an hour for turn 4, the very tight right-hander which they take in 3rd gear and which they are approaching now, they being Michael Schumacher in the spare Ferrari, followed by Rubens Barrichello, followed by Ralf Schumacher, followed by Mika Häkkinen, the top of McLaren. And they were not all that good in the warm-up. The warm-up was largely irrelevant, actually, because it was wet and drying out. But for what it's worth, Rubens Barrichello was quickest.
Arrows could have a problem. I think I saw mechanics still on the racetrack with less than 15 seconds to go to the start. So one of the Arrows at the back of the grid, towards the back of the grid, may well have a penalty, as Coulthard did last year in Canada, I believe it was, when we still had mechanics on the track. So...
Enrique Benaldi starting 22nd in the Arrows, having qualified 18th, pushed down to 22nd because of a technical infringement with the aerodynamics.
Strangely, looking out of the window, I think I saw a Jordan trailing behind the pack, Murray. I don't know whether we'll pick that up on our TV feed, but I think there's a Jordan in trouble coasting round at the back of the field at the moment.
Not Trulli, because I've just looked down, there is it's Frentzen, that is Frentzen. It's not Trulli because he's 5th, and the Jordan team have kindly put a marker on Trulli's car because he and Frentzen are so difficult to tell apart on the track. And Frentzen was due to be starting from 9th on the grid behind David Coulthard. The top, there he is, you can see him just, as Martin said, trailing along, coming up to turn 9. And
news from Louise in the Jordan pit, he's got a misfire of some sort, and the speed he's doing looks very much like he's constantly at pit lane speed limit, actually, something like that. But nonetheless, Frentzen then already in problems before the start of this Grand Prix.
Quite incredible, isn't it? Schumacher starting in the spare car, Frentzen in trouble before the race even starts. Michael Schumacher then starting in pole position for the 6th consecutive time. On his way, he hopes to his 6th consecutive win.
Frentzen arrives and the pack are all in place. He should go in the pits and start from the pit lane if he manages to clear his car. Suspect the problems he's got, he'll go in the pit lane anyway, but Frentzen should not really cruise up to the back of this grid now.
Grid order: Schumacher, Barrichello in the white and blue Williams BMW, Ralf Schumacher. There's one of the Benettons coming into line.
They'll have to abort the start. A Benetton completely out of sync there. Who is that down there? It's Fisichella, isn't it? Start aborted. I had this back in the 80s once when somebody else took my grid slot, and Fisichella, sorry, what he's done is he's turned over to his grid slot too late. He's obviously got mixed up, expecting all the cars in front of him to go down one more line, one more box, and he's turned too late. Obviously, if he reverses, he'll be disqualified immediately. You cannot reverse on a racetrack. So Fisichella, sorry, has done the only thing he can, and that's switch it off. And the clerk of the course has done, the race director's done the only thing he can, and that is abort the start of the race. Fisichella will now be put to the back of the field, and I notice it already. The stewards are investigating Jos Verstappen in the Arrows. That will be because the mechanics were on the racetrack, but surely now when they go to restart, Murray, there'll be a man in front of Fisichella holding a yellow flag, stopping him from keeping his current grid position.
Holding the yellow flag in such a way that the man behind him can see it, and that was to be Fisichella's 76th career Grand Prix start. He's done that enough times before, but something unusual must have happened. Benetton have not been in the best of shape here any more than they were at Williams. This is an investment year for them with a new Renault engine and a lot of new people there, and they're on the Michelin tyres, as you can see.
So a full restart then. I wonder if the grid shuffled up because Frentzen, who of course is 9th on the grid, I just wonder if it all got out of sync where people took Frentzen's grid slot, and Frentzen now able to rejoin his position, because it seemed to me that Fisichella initially parked on the left-hand side of the track, so I didn't just misunderstand his side of the track. And Frentzen being pushed towards the front, he can do that, no problem at all there, providing they can fix his misfire, of course. And then Fisichella appeared to try to change sides on the grid. So some confusion that may well have been because of an empty grid slot here for Frentzen.
So everybody all keyed up, ready for the go. They'd delayed getting into their overalls as long as they possibly could to prevent the heat build-up. But we're going to take the opportunity to leave Sepang shortly now for a break. Welcome back to Sepang. Restart in just under a minute. Restart being the rerun of the formation lap. And we will be watching, of course, particularly carefully Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the yellow Jordan, 9th on the grid, to see whether they've overcome his problem.
Yeah, so what does this all mean? The race will be 1 lap shorter, and now it's effectively a whole new start. Frentzen has retaken his position, which I believe, under the rules, he's perfectly entitled to do. So that's a major let-off for the Jordan team there, and but it happens. Sometimes it falls your way, sometimes it doesn't. I believe they will stop Fisichella from moving away from the grid and put him at the back. He caused the aborted start by apparently just mistaking which side of the grid he should be parked on, which is the ultimate embarrassment. If he's not, I mean, he just will be so red inside that car. So, and there's the man with the yellow flag in front of Fisichella. Yeah. So that's his punishment. Everybody else has now got to, and there's a car stalled on the line. And who is that?
It looks like
Montoya.
Marquez in the...
I think it's Montoya.
Oh, you're right, it is Montoya. He certainly didn't need that or want that. Now, he's going to have the same problem. You are allowed now to close up through the ranks, provided you can do it without inconveniencing anybody.
Dry ice is what you're seeing bouncing. That's coming out of the radiators. All the teams have shoved dry ice in to try to keep the cars cool. 2 starts do not help them at all, and you get this kind of problem creeping in. The clutches get hot, the engines get massively hot. There's a heat soak as they sit on the grid waiting for that restart, and as they brake for the first corner, all of the dry ice shoots out of the radiator side ducting.
Track temperature, according to our information, down quite a lot now to 35 degrees from 43 degrees. I find that hard to believe in the short time that we've had. But that's the official information as the 2 Ferraris stretch out ahead. I'm surprised at that. I would expect Michael Schumacher, in order to minimise his time on the lead, as Montoya's car is seemingly wheeled away, to lead the parade round slowly. Schumacher, that is.
Yes, so Montoya then clearly not just a stalling of the engine, there's some other problem with the looks of it. It's surprising they can't get that to go on the line, and they've got to clear it through a gap where all of the mechanics and support crew are still dragging their generators and spare tyres, etc., etc. And they can now recover that over the white line into the pit lane and try to start him from there. That's...
off he goes to get to the spare.
I don't believe
Juan Pablo Montoya rushing down the pit lane.
I don't believe he can use the spare car now, Murray. I'm not absolutely sure about that. I'd be very surprised if he's now allowed to jump in the spare car.
Well, they seem to think so. We'll soon know, because we'll be watching him as you will. So, what a race of dramas already. Michael Schumacher comes out in the spare car at the last moment. Heinz-Harald Frentzen tours round on the first formation lap. Then Giancarlo Fisichella pulls up in the wrong position on the grid, as a result of which the start is aborted. Then Juan Pablo Montoya can't get the Williams, or his people can't get the Williams started. Now, fingers crossed for a clean start this time, not for 56 laps as originally scheduled, but for 55 laps of this 3.4-mile Sepang circuit.
Yes, we still think that because the race has effectively started, this counts as a lap of the race they've just done. Maybe they're hoping to get him in the car. If there's another aborted start, but then they're still in the motor race. That is the only reason I can think of putting him in.
3, 4 lights, 5 lights. And it's going, Malaysia. Beautiful start by Michael Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello not so good. Coming up fast is Ralf Schumacher. Behind him is Jarno Trulli cutting through on the inside. Barrichello blocks him off, and Barrichello and up into second place, but now spinning it goes Ralf Schumacher. Is anybody going to hit him? Ralf Schumacher made a terrific start, but he's lost it. Spins the car round again, and coming up behind him, one of the Jaguars. All his terrific work at the start has been completely nullified, and up into third position in the Jordan comes Jarno Trulli, followed by
Coulthard. That was Coulthard. He had an amazing first corner.
8th position.
Yeah, Coulthard managed to sneak past Hakkinen in that first corner while he was watching Ralf spinning out of contention. And, who have we got here?
That's
Raikkonen, it looked like to me. I think that was Raikkonen.
It was definitely the Sauber, and it was definitely Raikkonen. Yep. So, well, Michael Schumacher leads. And two Ferraris up front in Malaysia. And look at the gap between them, and look at the gap even more importantly between Jarno Trulli and David Coulthard after that sensational start. And Heinz Harald Frentzen is there in 5th position in the Jordan, followed by one of the Arrows. How on earth did that get there, and who is it?
Verstappen.
It's got to be Verstappen, because Bernoldi was right at the back. Verstappen must have done an absolutely sensational start, because he's up into 6th position and he started in 18th place.
Let me do a quick 1 to 10, Mary, because the changes are amazing in these first couple of laps of the Grand Prix. One aborted and now just coming over the line to complete their first flying lap. It's Michael Schumacher from Rubens Barrichello by 1.3 seconds. Jarno Trulli, David Coulthard in 4th, Frentzen in the 2nd, Jordan 5th, Jos Verstappen, Jacques Villeneuve 7th, Mika Hakkinen down to 8th, so the two McLarens have swapped places effectively. Hannes 9th and Heidfeld 10th. It's on your screen now, the second half of that of the motor race.
Just listen to who Verstappen has passed. He's got past Jenson Button, Fisichella, Bertie, Raikkonen, Alesi, Irvine, Heidfeld, Panis and Frentzen. No, not Frentzen. He's got ahead of all of those, and he's now running, as you've just heard from Martin, in 6th position. There is the Arrows. Now, what this says to me, Martin, is, hello, that looks like
Villeneuve, I think.
Panis or Villeneuve. What this says to me about Jos Verstappen, he's on a very light fuel load and doing a two-stop strategy. It's early days to tell yet, but that could be one of the reasons why he's been able to sprint up from 18th, and it's Panis, Olivier Panis, despairingly out of the race. You can see from his body language that he's pretty fed up about something. There is the answer.
Well, what an amazing start to this Grand Prix. Oh, drama all the way. But Barrichello is just falling back a little bit at the front. Now, he was managing to peg Schumacher pretty much through that first lap, but all of a sudden, Michael just getting on with it. And Panis then, remember, disqualified from a strong position in the Melbourne Grand Prix. And here he is already out of the 2nd Grand Prix of the season. So
over the line goes Michael Schumacher. 2 laps completed. Behind him, Rubens Barrichello, 1.5 seconds. And Ralf Schumacher is starting to storm up through the field. He is currently at the end of the previous lap in 20th position. Barrichello closing a bit on Michael Schumacher as they go through the bends there, with Jarno Trulli already on lap 3, 5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. David Coulthard is less than a second behind Jarno Trulli. So it's Ferrari. They're in the grid order that they started, and Louise Goodman has got news.
Unbelievable drama at the start of this race, Murray, and just to let you know, there may be a bit more to come. I'm standing out at the back of the garages. It's starting to rain.
Well, look at that, Michael Schumacher off, and is he out of the race? He's kept an absolute roar from the crowd. Barrichello goes into the lead. He's off. Amazing, both the Ferraris off, and Jarno Trulli leads the Malaysian Grand Prix as it starts to the rain. What amazing!
And I haven't seen Coulthard behind him, so did all 3 of them go off? So yes.
Wet, you think? Wet?
Well, it must be raining. Louise just pointed out. Now, Coulthard is there. I missed him. And both Ferraris caught out on what must be a slightly damp corner.
One of them 3rd. It must be surely Michael Schumacher who regained the circuit first. We'll know in a moment. We're on lap 3 out of 55 in this incredible race already. As coming towards us from Italy in the Jordan Honda, The Honda engine now leading a Grand Prix for the first time since they've come back into Formula One. And look at the rain pouring down. And when it rains in Malaysia, believe me, it comes down not by the bucket full, but by the ocean full. They're having to slow right off. And here's a replay of Schumacher in the lead and Barrichello behind him.
I believe they went off probably initially on some oil from Panis's blown up BAR Honda. One Ferrari following the other through the gravel traps. That's caused a few heart attacks back in Maranello, but they both just got away with it, and now it's raining hard. They'll have to come in for wets at the end of this lap, I believe.
And you will have seen from that shot that it wasn't Schumacher that regained the track first, it was Barrichello up into third position with Heinz Harald Frentzen, and in they come for rain tyres, James Allen.
Well, there's some cars coming in, Murray. There, that was the Ferrari team. James.
Blinder here. Benetton have played an absolute blinder. They saw the problem. It's absolutely bucketing it down here. Fisichella got service first. Button got service second. Also one of the Minardis, but astonishingly, nobody else came in.
Safety cars out. Safety cars out. I'm not surprised because look at this. The conditions are impossible.
Two Jaguars line astern in the pits then. So the Jaguars in together. The Ferraris went around one more time. That's not got a lot of groove in that wet they're thinking of putting on there. And you're watching Fisichella, who's out now on wet tyres. But those that carried on past the pits will lose out quite heavily here. Depends just when this safety car picks up the pack. That's picked up Button, hasn't it?
It's a Button behind it. Now, we're going to wait for the safety car to come round to try to tell you logically and clearly about what is happening here. But you've heard the word monsoon, and that's Nick Heidfeld sitting in the Sauber, the man who had such a superb race in Australia, finishing in fourth position. Look at his rear wheel spinning. He's beached the car. The ride height in these Formula One cars, the distance between the ground and the bottom of the car is minimal, and he's beached it somewhere, and James Allen has got more news for us.
Well, the $10 million question now, of course, for these teams is who do they bring in first? Who do they serve first? Particularly McLaren. We've got two equal drivers. Who's going to get the tyres first? Is it going to be Häkkinen or Coulthard? From the body language of Ron Dennis, it's going to be Häkkinen, would you believe?
James Trulli is off. Jarno Trulli has gone off the track. You've just seen him. He was the man who was leading the race when the rain started coming down.
Well, this has surprised everybody. I did a scan, and they're not able to get round on their slicks. They're obviously aquaplaning off the road. I think Fisichella's the one who's going to gain most out of this. I believe he's ahead of the safety car and will come back round behind the pack. Cars off everywhere.
But Noldy's gone off.
I did a scan, Murray, of all of the major teams, and they all thought either no rain or a tiny bit of rain this afternoon, and that's why everybody has been so surprised. No sign. We got one Ferrari in the pit then, and Michael Schumacher is having to wait to see Barrichello serviced first. Michael Schumacher is parked up line astern behind the Ferrari of Barrichello.
And there is Montoya well and truly off the track in the Williams. You've seen Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari there with Michael Schumacher, both of them together. Now they're fitting the Bridgestone monsoon tyres, I should think.
Coulthard left the pit first. James, what can you tell us?
Absolutely right. This looks just played perfectly into the hands of McLaren. It's a gift from heaven, and I maligned the McLaren team, and particularly Ron Dennis. He was very clever. He brought Coulthard in. Straight away he was out, and then Häkkinen was coming straight in afterwards. Neither car lost any time in that, and they are in an incredibly strong position. Ferrari on the back foot.
What on earth's going on down at Ferrari, James? They still haven't got any tyres on Barrichello's car. This looks like we had back in Nürburgring a year or so back, where they just do not appear to have any tyres ready.
Well, look at this. This is a powerboat race. It's not a Formula One car race. As out of the pits after 1 minute and 12 seconds goes Rubens Barrichello.
A big pile of gravel, Murray, where Barrichello was parked, so they were cleaning out the side pods, and I assume they're going to have to do the same to Michael Schumacher. The only saving grace here for Ferrari is that under the safety car conditions, they will catch the back of the pack up without too much difficulty.
One of my cliches is anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does, but I wouldn't have expected this.
The track's dry, look, Murray. The track is bone dry down there at turn 1 and 2. It's only at the other end of the circuit have we got any rain.
Well, now, let me give you from our telemetry here what seems to be the race order at the moment. I say seems to be because all is confusion with so much happening. But we're on lap 5 out of the race distance, which is about 1/11th distance, with David Coulthard 9 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, or he was, because don't forget they're tight up now. And Rubens Barrichello was in 3rd position ahead of Michael Schumacher and Jos Verstappen. But we need time to settle down and let things clarify, because there is the race leader, David Coulthard. You've heard about the coup from James Allen that Ron Dennis, and remember what I said earlier on, people were writing McLaren off, as off goes Rubens Barrichello again. What a very unhappy race this is already turning out for Ferrari. James Allen. Hugely red faces down at Ferrari, as you would expect, Murray. They simply didn't have the tyres ready, as Martin pointed out. They'd had a lot of drama in the build-up to this race, with Schumacher at the very last minute having to switch from the race car to the spare car, I believe because of a hydraulic problem. There was a lot of edginess, and they just didn't get it right. McLaren were absolutely like clockwork. But you want the real irony, guys? It's stopping raining now. Yeah, so this circuit dries out quite quickly. When the warm-up started this morning at 10:30, the track was wet. Not as wet as it is now, but wet. At about 11:15, that's only a quarter of an hour later, it was drying out. And at about 10 to 11, it was completely dry. Replay.
Right, we've got a replay of the second start then. And if you go down in the first corner, you'll see that Ralf Schumacher comes round the outside, the white car around the outside of the second Ferrari. And I believe Barrichello nerfs Ralf Schumacher out of the way into an inevitable spin. Watch Coulthard sneaking up the inside there to take that 4th place now. And that was all of the drama on the first lap. And another action now, another view of that as they get away.
And watch Frentzen too.
Yeah, Frentzen had a great start. Rubens again an ordinary start, and it's Michael launching off. And look, Ralf then appearing to have the line into the corner. Rubens keeping going and just nerfed him into a bit of a pendulum spin there. Not a lot Ralf could do about that. He clearly didn't understand. And I think Eddie Irvine got caught up in that somewhere as well, with a spin at the back. Yes, there's Irvine with a spin at the back of the field. But according to the computer at the moment, not what you're seeing on your screen, I think those cars immediately behind the safety car are now a lap down. Coulthard leads this race from Jos Verstappen, Frentzen, Hakkinen, Trulli, Alesi, Fisichella, Ralf Schumacher, Mazzacani, and then the 2 Ferraris. And then the lapped runners. That may yet unfold, because yeah, now the safety car will let the lapped runners pass to come round to the tail of the field and pick up the race leader, which according to the computer is David Coulthard. Yeah, and of course they will all have closed up. So who is in second position? Who is in second position? Jos Verstappen is in second position, and he started 18th. Yes, there's 15 runners left in that, and if this race restarts under wet conditions, watch out for Verstappen. I think Coulthard will have his hands full. Jos was very, very fast in the rain this morning, and always is fast. There are 15 runners left in this race, and the top 15 on the computer at the moment, and this is, I assume, now sorted out after the chaos and carnage out on the track and in the pit lane. We saw 2 Ferraris parked up for 3/4 of a minute, probably even a minute before Michael Schumacher got out. It is David Coulthard from Frentzen, Verstappen, Hakkinen, Trulli, Alesi, Fisichella in 7th, Ralf Schumacher is 8th, Mazzacani in the Prost is 9th, Rubens Barrichello 10th, Michael Schumacher 11th, and then Jenson Button 12th, Bertie in the Jaguar 13th, Tarso Marquez in the European Minardi, and Alonso in the second Minardi 14th and 15th. Everybody else out of the race. So and as you can see, the first 4 very close to each other, and the others should close up. We're going to see a very strange and special Formula 1 race now, with Frentzen behind Coulthard, Verstappen he's according to this in 3rd position at the present moment, followed by Mika Hakkinen, and it's going to be real cut and thrust stuff. Well, 3 cars then. This is a replay you're seeing here. 3 cars went off on that lap when it started to rain, all on the same corner. Louise. Louise Goodman.
Hello, Murray. I'm sitting with Eddie Irvine, who's had a rather troublesome race already with just a few laps going. Eddie, tell me what happened. You were spinning all over the place in that one.
was one of the arrows hit me up the rear at the first corner, spun me, and then I got going again, and it was me and Ralph battling, and big shower came just as we came to one of the corners, and the 3 of us went off in a row. Got on and then came in for the pit stop, but there was a problem with the car was overheating or something, and obviously the tyre situation, there was lots of problems. It's going to take us a few days to figure out, piece it all together, what actually happened.
What were the conditions like out there when the rain came down?
Well, I was lucky. I just came around sort of just before the last corner. I came down, and that's where it was really pouring, and obviously I was coming to the pits, so that point was very, very bad, but I think it's okay now.
Thanks, Eddie. A spectator from now on. Back to you, Murray.
Here's something I can't explain, Murray, is Frentzen is now up in second place, Verstappen down to third, and that is truly going off. He's currently shown as 5th. He obviously escaped out of that gravel trap at some point. Again, it doesn't say replay, but I believe this is and Coulthard off in the background as well.
It's Frentzen. This is this problem
It is truly, but that's a replay. Yeah. Coulthard went off in the background, recovered, and came in the pits first. So they were running first and second into the last corner of that lap where it started to rain. It was a replay, and they both went off in the last corner. Coulthard making it back onto the track first.
No news about when the safety car is coming in at the moment. I was surprised at the big gap between Mika Häkkinen and Jarno Trulli on the track at the present moment. You can see David Coulthard tucked up behind the safety car, and the yellow Jordan to the right is Frentzen. And Frentzen is a changed man this season. He was pretty downcast with Jordan last year because of all the unreliability problems that he had with the car, because he failed to finish 11 times out of the 17 races last year. But he says this is the best Jordan he has ever driven, partly due, of course, to the fact that it's now got this works Honda engine in it, and it's got colossal grunt. But to the right is Coulthard. In the middle is Frentzen. In the orange car, the orange arrows, is Jos Verstappen. Then there's a gap to Mika Häkkinen, so both the McLarens, which started 4th and 8th, are now in the top 4, with Jarno Trulli in the second Jordan. So both the Jordans are in the top 5, with John Alesi making up the top 6, believe it or not, in the Prost.
James Allen.
Yeah, Martin, the thing to watch for at the restart is Rubens Barrichello allowing Michael to go past him. I've got a feeling that Michael is on a 2-stop strategy here, and that Rubens was on a 1, a bit like the McLarens. Now, that's something to watch out for. The other thing, of course, is as it has now stopped raining, we're going to run around for a little while here. They were going to be coming in the mid-20s, the 2 stoppers. You could push that back to perhaps the late 20s, but certainly this looks as though it might play into the hands of people on 2 stops. If it doesn't rain again, they're all going to be coming in around about that time, because these wet tyres aren't going to like a drying circuit, and therefore the pendulum, which has swung right towards McLaren at the moment, could well swing away again as well. So don't go away, folks, because this is going to be a classic race.
James, did you get any idea of who put inters on and who put wets on? Because if you're in the pit lane, it would be very easy to think you needed full wets.
Yeah, everybody had inters ready initially because the rain was falling down. It looked like it wasn't going to be a monsoon, and then the monsoon came. My hunch is that's what happened with Ferrari. That's why they were so slow with Barrichello. They initially wanted to put inters on, then they changed their mind for wets and couldn't find them. McLaren certainly put full wets on. It was so heavy, the rain at the time, Martin, you couldn't really have gone any other way.
Yes, because we've already seen Barrichello fly off the road, rejoining after his pit stop. So Barrichello then possibly still on intermediate tyres.
Yeah, let's explain what inters are. There's various grades of tyre in terms of their tread configuration, and inters means intermediate. That is for circumstances where the track is damp to wet, but not monsoon conditions like we've had. And Bridgestone and Michelin, of course, will also have a tyre that's better for drier conditions, and a tyre that's capable of coping with the really, really rain-soaked track. Now, let me quickly tell you, while you're looking at these replays, of who is out of the race. Jacques Villeneuve and Panis are out, so there is Panis on this replay. Both the BARs out. Nick Heidfeld is out in the Sauber, as is his teammate Kimi Räikkönen, with flames coming from the back of the BAR. So a terrible race already for BAR and for Sauber. Bernoldi is out in the Arrows. Montoya is out in the Williams. Not a very good Grand Prix start for him this season. Eddie Irvine, you've heard from, is out in the Jaguar. And on lap 8 with the safety car no news yet about when it's coming in.
Yeah, I don't understand why the safety car's still out there, unless they're still clearing away the various cars that were beached in the gravel traps. We haven't seen any signs of that on our TV picture, but no safety cars coming in at the end of this lap.
Martin, just look at Jos Verstappen. You can sort of almost feel the car pulsating with his eagerness to get to grips with the two in front of him. He hasn't had an opportunity like this since his first season in Grand Prix racing as the reserve driver for Benetton, and he subsequently took over the drive and got 2 third places.
Yes, and as I said earlier on, he's very, very fast in these changeable conditions. And anybody who is out there on inters, I think, will be, within a lap or so, will be on the right tyre, because the full wet is going to get very, very hot in the early section of the lap. The first 4 or 5 corners of the lap are quite dry until now, till the exit of turn 4, look. And then the wet will come into its own for a while. But I think right now, if I was just taking to the track for a test right now, I think I'd be on the intermediates.
Well, I said that I was surprised at the gap between Jarno Trulli in 5th place and Häkkinen in 4th position on the track. That's disappeared now. Look at it. So, Coulthard, the safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. Remember that they're not allowed to pass until they get the green light and cross the line. David Coulthard leading Frentzen, leading Verstappen, leading Häkkinen, leading Trulli, leading Alesi. Those are the top 6.
I can explain now how Frentzen's popped back in front of Verstappen, apparently under what must have been a myriad of yellow flags as everybody was falling off the road with that surprise rainstorm. Apparently Verstappen overtook Frentzen under a yellow and so has yielded to try to avoid any kind of penalty. In fact, it now says the safety car will do 1 further lap, and I just can't see why at the moment.
Just as a matter of interest, the man who is driving the safety car is Bernd Mailander, the German DTM and touring car expert. And he's had a lot of mileage in this car, and there's a lot of responsibility on his shoulders now.
I wonder if the race director is in contact either with, through one of the teams, with the drivers. I know they can sometimes ask opinions as to whether the track is ready to go, because they're obviously feeling how much water there is down. A couple of those corners are still pretty wet, actually, as you look further around the lap. But here we are through 14, and it's virtually bone dry again, isn't it, on their right-hand side of the track. So I wonder if either the safety car driver and or some of the key drivers are saying, give it 1 more lap.
Yeah, up to the hairpin, 180-degree hairpin turn 15, which they take in a very low gear. So here is the final lap for the safety car, as far as we know, although obviously we're keeping our eyes on it, and we'll keep you tuned. Coulthard to the right, the man who last won a Grand Prix in France last year. He won the French Grand Prix, he won the British Grand Prix, and of course he also had a 3rd victory that year. And into turn 1, safety car, Coulthard. Yellow Jordan, Trulli. Orange arrows, Verstappen. Silver and black, McLaren, Häkkinen. Yellow Jordan, Trulli. And the frost of Jean Alesi, who's higher up now than he's been for a very long time. And there's the replay of the BAR in flames, spinning off, with Olivier Panis finishing his race.
Yes, and of course the next 2 cars round, really, that would probably not have had yellow flag assistance or so much warning were the 2 Ferraris, who both went off on that corner, and it was starting to spit with rain. And as you well know, a drop of water and a drop of oil is massively slippery, especially if you ride a motorbike on the roads. And that caught both Ferrari drivers out. James?
Yeah, down at McLaren, big drama here. It appears Coulthard's radio is not working. I've just seen Dave Ryan running across. They're about to give him a board next time round. And so if he is in touch with the race director, he's certainly not in touch with the team.
Deja vu, because remember in Australia, Michael Schumacher was tapping the top of his helmet and there was a misunderstanding. He thought he was adjusting the air vent. In fact, he was communicating with Ross Brawn, the Ferrari chief, who was worried that Michael Schumacher was not in radio contact.
Now, will David Coulthard know then that the race is about to restart? He's certainly trying to warm his brakes and tyres up accordingly, and he should know the rule regarding the lights, and the safety car will pull off into the pit lane. We're only in 9 and 10 at the moment, so a while to go before the end of this lap. Can the team give David Coulthard the information that he needs to be sure that he knows the race is about to restart at the end of this lap.
We've just been told that Ralf Schumacher's rear light is not on. I hope that's not going to be significant in terms of penalisation. They're supposed to have the red light on, of course, when they're in bad weather conditions so that the car behind them can see them.
If I remember from swatting up the regulations, you cannot be pulled off the track for not having your rear light on. Although they can ask you to put it on, they can't drag you off the track. And apparently they have now made contact with David Coulthard, so he is aware that the race restarts at the end of this lap.
Which is very shortly, because they're coming down the Penang straight now into the hibiscus domed turn there, which is turn 15. The safety car it pulls off and the race restarts, but remember, no passing until they cross the line, which gives David Coulthard the opportunity to sprint away. Verstappen is challenging Frentzen.
Frentzen asleep there, let Coulthard go, and he's got Verstappen then able, not close enough to have a look up the inside, but Coulthard caught them all sleeping, particularly Frentzen.
So a tight match between Trulli and Verstappen and Hakkinen, with Jarno Trulli in the second Jordan closing up on all of them. And John Lacey, where is he? There's a big gap there. There is the Prost, and John Lacey has got Giancarlo Fisichella's Benetton right behind him. I would expect Lacey to be able to pull away, and look at Jos Verstappen swarming all over Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Jordan. This is Jos Verstappen's opportunity. Jos, the boss from Holland, and he knows it. He's got the Acertec engine in the car, and it's down on power compared with the others, but that won't harm it nearly as much in these wet conditions as he would in the dry.
Well, they're into the great unknown at the moment. We know there's oil on the track. We know there must be a lot of gravel. The track is sort of 25% dry and 75% wet or very wet, and Hakkinen now having a good look up the inside of Verstappen into turn 9. Hakkinen looking comfortable. Two McLarens working better in these conditions.
Just before I came up to the commentary box, Mika Hakkinen came up to me and he said, "Have a nice afternoon," and I said the same to you. It's already turning out to be a lot nicer than he might have expected. In fourth place and challenging Jos Verstappen for third, Heinz-Harald Frentzen for second, as David Coulthard edges away a bit in the lead McLaren, with Lacey still 6th, Fisichella 7th, and Verstappen having a real go at Heinz-Harald Frentzen as we look through the ball of spray, and Jos Verstappen goes through at the hairpin. Terrific bit of driving. Jos Verstappen second place, Heinz-Harald Frentzen displaced.
Well, Verstappen overtook Coulthard in the rain in the warm-up there, so if he can now close that gap to Coulthard, Verstappen may well be able to lead this motor race. So 2.8 seconds down then, Verstappen over the leader Coulthard, and at the back, towards the back of the field, 8th and 9th now are the two Ferraris, just making their way past. They have passed the two Benettons, so they're on their way through the field.
Terrific performance, not only by Verstappen, but by the whole Arrows team. It's a new car after last year. Mike Coughlin, the designer of Tom Walkinshaw's team, has done a superb job with his people. They've got a lot of new people there, and they're certainly making the most of them all, because Heinz-Harald Frentzen is dropping back. Mika Hakkinen doesn't seem to be able to do anything about them at the present moment, and Ralf Schumacher is up into 5th position in the Williams, and we believe that the Michelin wet tyre is particularly good, and the gap between Ralf Schumacher, who is 5th, and Hakkinen, who is 4th, is a mere 2.4 seconds, and getting smaller. Look, there's the proof. Verstappen 2nd, Frentzen 3rd, Hakkinen going through and taking that 3rd position. So Frentzen has lost 3 places. He's lost 2nd place to 2 places. He's lost 2nd place to Jos Verstappen. Now he's lost 3rd place to Mika Hakkinen. And McLaren are 1st and 3rd. Who would have thought this could have happened half an hour ago?
And Michael Schumacher has passed Rubens Barrichello somewhere out on the track. So as James Allen predicted, Michael may well be on a lighter fueler. They would have had a chance to top it up in that pit stop, try to get him, but all of those windows that they've so carefully planned as to when to come in are pretty much out of the window, so to speak. They're going to have to recalculate. And who was that shaping up to have a good look at the back? And it was it must have been
Schumacher. Schumacher's coming through. Ralf Schumacher taking it. Surely Frentzen must have a problem. He's now lost yet another place as Ralf Schumacher storms through. Now here are the first 10. Coulthard leads, Verstappen second, Häkkinen third, Ralf Schumacher is up to 4th. There he is, Frentzen down to 5th, Michael Schumacher is 6th. Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari up into 6th position, ahead of Rubens Barrichello. 8th is Trulli, 9th is Fisichella, Jenson Button in the second, Benetton is 10th. Then it's Alesi, Berti, Mazzacani, Marquez and Alonso. Both the European Minardi still running.
Yeah, so Michael Schumacher over a second faster than anybody else on the racetrack last time around. So Schumacher, as ever, very well hooked up and already shaping up to go right around the outside of Frentzen. That's incredible. Into turn 12 and just amazing. Just drove right around the outside of him. So Schumacher then up to 5th place.
And look at the way Ralf Schumacher is harrying Mika Häkkinen as his brother Michael comes up behind him. The battle of the brothers is beginning and David Coulthard leads by about 3 seconds as Michael Schumacher visibly closes on his brother and Rubens Barrichello goes past Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So Frentzen, who had a problem, you remember, on the original start when he had to tour around, may have a that's Jenson Button in trouble and he's touring. So Heinz-Harald Frentzen may well have a repetition of whatever the problem was.
Thought it looked like Button was recovering from a spin actually, but Häkkinen then under a lot of pressure from Michael Schumacher. We don't know the fuel loads at the moment. They may have changed. Everybody would have topped up with fuel without doubt while they were putting the wets on, so they should be able to go at least 35 to 40 laps well into that sort of zone. And Häkkinen having to defend his line, but it's no good. Schumacher's gone right around the outside for the second time in 2 laps of another car. Michael running a little bit wide there, but no problem for him, and Schumacher on the rampage.
And there are people who say that Michael Schumacher is not a superstar. You are seeing the evidence before your very eyes as he drives round the outside of double world champion Mika Häkkinen, 3 times world champion Michael Schumacher. So it's Coulthard leading and Verstappen is still in 2nd place.
I wonder if Michael Schumacher's on those intermediate tyres, because he's now some 3 seconds faster than most of the other runners and 2 seconds faster than absolutely everybody. Coulthard up front on lap 14 at the moment with a 2.1 second lead, but beginning to slow with his wet tyres. James.
I've worked out, Martin, and I've done a bit of a better job than I did in the last race, that they've saved 6 laps worth of fuel, so that will put the 1-stoppers coming in the early lap 40 region, and the 2-stoppers, who I believe Michael Schumacher is one of them. I believe Coulthard's on a 1-stopper. So Michael Schumacher on a 2-stopper will come in around about lap 29 to 30, something along those lines.
And the Ferraris are right up with the McLaren now. You're looking at Mika Häkkinen in 4th position, and Look how close it is between the Ferrari and the McLaren. And the McLaren it's Rubens Barrichello there battling against Mika Häkkinen, and he's going, and he does it. Rubens Barrichello passes Mika Häkkinen just as his teammate Michael Schumacher did, except that Michael Schumacher did it on the outside, Rubens Barrichello did it on the inside, and now Ralf Schumacher is closing up in the Williams BMW on Mika Häkkinen. Knowing Mika and the car as I do, I suspect he must have some kind of a problem.
I think he's on wets, and I think the Ferraris are on intermediates. And now Michael Schumacher shaping up. He didn't make it to have a stab at Verstappen, so Verstappen stays second. Coulthard only just in front of them now. Look, Coulthard beginning to struggle at the front of the field. Michael now 4.4 seconds quicker than the race leader on the previous lap. They must be on different tyres.
Here he goes, Verstappen second, right behind him, the Ferrari of 3 times world champion Michael Schumacher. As we look down on the first 3, David Coulthard, Jos Verstappen, and Michael Schumacher is going to go round Jos Verstappen. Goes through on the inside. Is Verstappen going to yield and let him through? No, he is not. And the rain is coming down again. Barrichello in 4th position. Mika Häkkinen in 5th position. Ralf Schumacher is 6th. Frentzen is 7th. Trulli is 8th. Fisichella is 9th. Luciano Berti in the only Jaguar is in 10th position. And Michael Schumacher has another look at and another go at Jos Verstappen. And still he can't get past. Verstappen is entitled to take the racing line where he wants it to be, and he is doing it fairly and squarely.
Yes, the wetter part of the track. Now Michael's got the run up the inside into 9, and it begins to dry up now. So Michael then slicing through into 2nd place easily as it happens, and I'd be absolutely sure he's on the intermediates just by the way he's driving around the outside of people in these kind of corners where it's a little bit drier. Coulthard will be the next victim in a very short amount of time, I would imagine.
And Michael Schumacher shaking the head of the Ferrari, or the Ferrari shaking its own head, as the reigning world champion closes up on David Coulthard. Shortly, we think, to take the lead. David Coulthard looks at his mirrors. Michael Schumacher dives out from behind his wing, gets through on the inside. No, as they come up to the left-hander, turn 15 at the end of the lap. This is the end of lap 15 in this 55-lap race. 40 laps still to go, and a lot of drama still to come. And now Michael Schumacher goes for it as they come down to turn 1, and then the left-hander at turn 2, and through.
Yeah, you can see the pattern on the tyres, Schumacher on different tyres, no doubt about it. It's clear to see from the pattern along the top, and of course the speed through these dry corners. So Ferrari then, whilst it took a long time to find any tyres, at least they put the right ones on.
Found the right ones
when they did.
So now the battle is between Jos Verstappen there for 3rd place and Rubens Barrichello behind him, with Mika Häkkinen in 5th place, Ralf Schumacher, and now there is Barrichello surging past Jos Verstappen. Another manifestation of the fact that they are undoubtedly the two Ferraris on the right Bridgestone tyres at the present moment to cope with these ever-changing weather conditions. Dry, wet, then drying out a bit, then getting wet again. They've got it right, although it took them some time to do so. And it looks now as though Rubens Barrichello will be passing David Coulthard to make it Ferrari 1st and 2nd on lap 16.
That's some very dark clouds and a lot of rain falling in the not too distant, just over the hills there. So this is going to be a very changeable race. But if you'd want to know what I'm talking about on the pattern of the tyre, you'll see a groove that's right down the middle of the intermediates of the Ferraris, whereas you'll see 2 or 3 grooves spread across the tyre. If you just look along the very top edge of them, if you get a close-up, you'll see exactly what I mean. That confirms they are different patterns of tyres, and you can see Coulthard's are even a different colour. Those wets do not like dry corners, and that's why Barrichello can simply drive right past him. He gets a lot more bite out of the corners and just builds up speed so much faster than the wet-shod car of David Coulthard.
There's a lot of Ferrari fans here, just as there are at all the racing circuits. They're standing up now. The flags are waving. You saw one in the foreground there. They're cheering their heroes, Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, 1st and 2nd. And it looks to me as though Jos Verstappen now is going to have a go at David Coulthard, because the orange arrows is closing all the time on the silver and black McLaren. It's still Mika Häkkinen in 5th position, doing nothing about Jos Verstappen. He's 8 seconds behind him now. Ralf Schumacher is lapping slower in the Williams than Häkkinen is, but he's still in the top 6.
The problem that the runners on wet have got, we're only on lap 17. So much has happened in this race, it seems like we should be somewhere near the end, but amazingly it's just lap 17. They're nowhere near a sensible pit stop window, so if they come in to change tyres, they'll lose best part of 25, 27 seconds doing that. At the moment, they're 6 seconds a lap slower by being on those wrong tyres, so quite clearly, within 5 laps, they will have regained that time. It might be worth them coming in shortly and just going for a set of inters anyway.
And James Allen, what's the news?
Well, Murray, the thunderclouds are above us. I've just seen a horizontal bolt of white lightning. I've not seen anything like that, certainly never in England anyway. But I can confirm for you that the two Ferraris are on the intermediate tyres, and I can tell you what happened there. They were going to go for the wets, and it was the other way around to what I said. They were going for the wets originally, and then they obviously thought about this and realised the safety car would be obvious because of the amount of rain that was coming down. So they put them out on the intermediate tyres, knowing the safety car would not release the cars until it was safe, and that worked out very well for them. In this morning's warm-up, Ferrari both used the intermediate tyre and got some good performance out of them, whereas the rest of the teams tended to stick with the wet tyre. So the warm-up really worked for Ferrari. Schumacher leading this race.
There'll be a lot of scepticism as to whether the pace car staying out so long was anything to do with Michael on the radio screaming, it's too wet at the moment. But I mean, I'm not saying that's the case at all, but I know those sort of rumours are going to be flying around at the end of this race.
Well, whatever, David Coulthard is now in 3rd position, 1.5 seconds ahead of the orange arrows of Jos Verstappen, and there will be people all over the planet who will be crossing their fingers for arrows, and Jos Verstappen. The team have had a lot of adversity in the recent past. Tom Walkinshaw has patiently built up the team at Lee Field in Gloucestershire. They've got a magnificent facility there now. He's put a lot of money into it, and Jos Verstappen is making it pay off at the present moment, because look at the gap between him and Mika Häkkinen. It's 9 seconds, and there is the McLaren, and you see Ralf Schumacher in the background coming round. Things are getting quite spread out. There's a 26-second gap now between Michael Schumacher in the lead and Ralf Schumacher, who is in 6th position.
If it doesn't rain soon, I think Coulthard and co may as well come in for some intermediates. They're still losing over 5 seconds per lap to the Ferraris on those inters.
Yeah, I would have expected in normal conditions on a 2-stop strategy, people to start coming in round about lap 22. That's what they did last year. We're on lap 18 at the moment, and Michael Schumacher is romping away. He's about 0.6 of a second a lap at the present moment, faster than his teammate Rubens Barrichello, who is about 3.5 seconds faster than David Coulthard. Verstappen and Häkkinen are lapping at about the same time, but Schumacher is the man on the charge, as you see, increasing his lead. He goes over the line now to complete his 19th lap and start his 20th out of 55, coming up towards half distance, and his lead has increased to 7.3 seconds.
Yes, Michael Schumacher, as always, in a league of his own in these difficult and unpredictable conditions, and stretching that lead out over 7 seconds over his teammate. Meanwhile, Coulthard and co still falling away at over 5 seconds a lap, and Häkkinen then is the first to come in for, I would assume, it will have to be some inters. Let's see if we can see. Now there's slicks. Häkkinen then gambling on slicks. That'll be a bit tricky in a couple of corners, but that may well prove to be a smart move, and I believe Ralf Schumacher in the BMW Williams doing exactly the same. Yes, so Häkkinen then on slicks.
Well, you've heard us talking about tyres, you've heard us talking about monsoon tyres, about intermediate tyres, and now about slick tyres. Slick tyres actually have 3 grooves in them now. They used to be all rubber, because the more rubber you can put on the ground, the better. And in order to slow the cars down a bit, they introduced grooves.
4 grooves.
4 grooves now. They were 3 grooves, and there's 4 of them now. And that just means there's less rubber on the ground. So it's going to make things tricky in these damp conditions. But if it continues to dry out, of course, it's going to be an enormous benefit for the people who are on them. Very soon, as the Ferrari mechanics come out, we can expect to see Michael Schumacher on his 19th lap, leading by over 7 seconds, come in, and then Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, surely they'll bring Coulthard in on this lap. He's going to lose way too much time when those slicks get up to temperature on the other runners. So Coulthard surely will pit at the end of the lap too. And well, they're intermediates they put on the Minardi, so they're not going to gamble on slicks. And Coulthard then coming down the final straight into turn 15. Will he take to the pit lane, or will he go for one more lap? And he's going for another lap.
Yeah, he's going on. He's going on, running very wide. That was Fernando Alonso, incidentally, in the Minardi, running 15th at the present moment. Last, but there's 7 people out of this race. Villeneuve, Heidfeld, Bernoldi, Montoya, Eddie Irvine, Olivier Panis, Kimi Raikkonen. Both the Saubers and both the BARs have retired. 15 cars left out of the 22 started. Lap 20 out of 55. Michael Schumacher leads Barrichello by over 9 seconds.
Well, like us, all eyes in the pit lane will now be, of course, on the 2 slick runners, Häkkinen and Ralf Schumacher, currently down there in 7th and 8th place. And the moment they look like they're finding some time, and that's not a lap time, they'll just be reacting to a section time even, where they can see the slick shot cars going faster. And of course the Ferraris with such a lead, over 12 seconds on 21 seconds on third place man Coulthard, they can afford to wait one more lap rather than take a risk. Häkkinen and Ralf Schumacher had a lot less to lose by going for that stop earlier, and Coulthard, of course, in third place. He's really pretty much in the middle of those, and look, his left front wear has got virtually no tread on it at all. It's just burning the rubber straight off.
The fastest lap we've had so far was Michael Schumacher, 1:41.8, and that was on lap 2, when things were much better than they are now, of course. He's currently lapping about 1 minute 49, which is 2 seconds faster than Rubens Barrichello. As you look at Jos Verstappen in 4th position behind Coulthard, Barrichello and race leader Michael Schumacher that you're looking at.
Well, here's the answer then. Look, Häkkinen, albeit in that first drier section, has just done the fastest T1 of the whole race so far, of section 1. So Häkkinen already found grip in those first 4 corners, but as we know, it's the next section, 7 through 9, that is more wet, and I'll keep a close eye on that. And still, he's not too bad. So the slicks are not quite ready in the middle of the track yet, but anytime soon.
So Michael Schumacher 149.8, and he can afford to stay out. He's got, compared with Häkkinen, he's over a minute ahead of him. He's 10 seconds ahead of Barrichello. He's 25 seconds and more ahead of David Coulthard. So he can afford to come in, take on new tyres, get out again, and still stay in the lead ahead of David Coulthard if they had a good stop. And we're looking at Mika Häkkinen now, 8th position, closing on Giancarlo Fisichello's Benetton ahead of him. And
I think he went in the pits,
yeah,
Murray.
Fisichella's just gone into the pits, so up a place to 7th position. 1 position off the points goes the Flying Fibs.
Right, 56.5 for Häkkinen, that's 7 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher. He's gone a bit too early. It's too wet in the middle of the lap. Of course, he's got to build tyre temperature up. He's got to learn where those slicks will give grip and will not. But that was a pretty slow first lap there for Häkkinen. And what did Ralf Schumacher do? Same time. So the slicks, they're a touch too early.
Fisichella out on slicks. Well, he's coming in later, but has he still come in too early? People say to me, why doesn't the best driver always win the race? And I say, well, you know, the best driver has to have the best car, he has to have the best backup, he has to have the best engine and mechanics. Of course, he has to have the best tyres, and he has to have the best tyres for the circumstances. And that is what Schumacher has got now. Barrichello
in the pits then, so now let's see what Barrichello, surely they'll obviously put slicks on him and fuel it up. So they're just in a 2-stop window now. They can bring themselves back just about on schedule with this, and very used looking slicks there. They look quite new at the rear actually, and they're still trying to clean the side pods of Barrichello's car. I wonder if he, well, of course, remember he went off after he changed tyres last time, trying to catch the pace car up. He's been off once again since his initial spill in tandem with Michael Schumacher earlier in the race.
Yeah, for some reason they were expecting a lot of debris here anyway. I know the BARs have got special wire mesh guards that they can rip out at the pit stop to clean out the side pods. Now they've got longer side pods this year, so the radiators are further back, and it's very difficult for the mechanics to reach into the side pods and get debris away from the radiators. And if there's debris there, it's going to be affecting the cooling of the engine. It will overheat and they'll be in problems. Lap 22, Schumacher leads Barrichello now by 16.6 seconds. There's bags of movement there in the Jordan pit as out comes Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who was in 6th position.
Well, I don't know what they're reacting to by bringing these cars in, because the mid-sector's just 3 seconds too slow. I know it'll come round quite quickly, but at the moment they're still, of course, they were on wet, so I suppose they're moving from wets to slicks, and I'm comparing them with Michael on the intermediates, but nonetheless it is still a touch too early for slicks.
No, not now, I think, Martin. Mika Häkkinen has just done the fastest first sector, as you pointed out earlier on. But this is the fastest of the whole race, 25.7, compared with Michael Schumacher's 26.2. There is Jarno Trulli in 5th position in the Jordan. And the order is Schumacher, Barrichello, Coulthard, Verstappen still hanging on in the arrows, in the points, in 4th place, ahead of Jarno Trulli that we have just seen. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, both the Jordans are in the top 6, as are both the Ferraris. Mika Häkkinen in the 2nd McLaren is out of the points, he's in 7th place. Ralf Schumacher is 8th, and you watch now the Jordan, here it comes.
Coulthard's getting some good lap times in now on his full wets. He's down to within 2 seconds a lap of Michael Schumacher. We're going to take a short break.
Coming up towards half distance in this incredible race of incidents and surprises here in Malaysia. with Michael Schumacher leading David Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello as positions change all around, and you're looking now at Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW challenging Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who retains his lead, who is attacked again by Ralf Schumacher, who has to back off. The series of bends means that the man on the inside has the advantage, and it's first one and then the other.
Yeah, and the stonking speed from that Williams BMW, and Ralph's got up the inside, but that's going to be a bit nip and tuck, and Frentzen having to yield there really. But now is the right moment to be on slicks. For sure, now they're just shaping up to be quicker than the full wets. Häkkinen now finally on slicks, quicker than Coulthard on the full wet, and now is the moment to come in. And you can see Frentzen desperately still trying to find some grip, and teammate, that's Trulli, so he must be coming up to be lapped by Trulli. No, Trulli just come out of the pits actually, so Trulli was in fourth, having now made a pit stop off camera, and now falling back behind Frentzen as Bertie makes his way out of the pits. He was in ninth when he came in.
Yeah, but people are coming in all the time now. That is the Benetton of Jenson Button, who is running in 14th place out of the 15 competitors who are still running from the 22 who started. All those retirements earlier on, primarily through people spinning off in the sudden monsoon deluge that we had here at Sepang, Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Michael Schumacher really flying, 1 minute 47.8 he has just done, compared with David Coulthard 1:51.9. But Michael Schumacher is now, Mika Häkkinen is now very quick indeed. He's up into 5th position ahead of Jarno Trulli and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Both the McLarens then, the McLaren Mercedes in the top 6, both the Ferraris in the top 6, and completing the top 6, Rubens Barrichello, Jos Verstappen, who is 4th, and Ralf Schumacher, who is 6th.
Yeah, surprised to see Coulthard going round again in the 2nd place man. He must be just about the only one out there now on the full wet tyres. The 2 Ferraris, or 1 Ferrari now, Michael Schumacher, still easily the fastest man on the track on those inters that they took an awful long time to choose, but turned out to be a spectacularly good choice when they did finally bolt them on.
I was talking earlier on about the heat conditions. Well, both the track and the air temperature have gone way down now. 26 degrees and 27 degrees for the track and the air temperatures. The track has cooled, of course, with all this water on it, and it was up round about 43 degrees when this race started. But Michael Schumacher leading the race is showing us yet again what a rain master he is. We've seen some sensational performances from him in Spain and Monaco. James Allen.
Yeah, still some communication problems here for McLaren. I think they're going to try and fuel to the finish. Well, he was away very sharply then. Yeah, maybe not fuel to the finish there actually. He was away very sharply. Nearly took the hose out, 8.8 seconds. But still some communication problems there, Martin. And this is interesting for you. Those tyres were out of that blanket for well over 2 minutes. And the temperature has really dropped here. Is that going to hurt him?
It'll make it a bit tricky for 3 or 4 corners, as he'll certainly understeer into turn 1 here. But did he get back out in front of Barrichello? No, he did not. So Coulthard will rejoin. He is now 3rd place. So Ferraris 1 and 2 then. Coulthard back down to 3rd.
You heard the word understeer there. What that means is that the car wants to go straight on when the driver wants it to turn left or right. All the cars are suffering from understeer here because of the revised aerodynamic regulations, but the McLarens in particular are suffering, and it's a problem which is going to carry on until at least after the Brazilian Grand Prix, as Mika Häkkinen now closes up on Jos Verstappen, going for 4th position. Arrows 4th, McLaren 5th, and Ralf Schumacher is now the fastest man on the track in the Williams.
In section 1 that is, but Verstappen still cutting the mustard, look, and obviously very quick in the way. I think he'll lose some of that advantage now that he had earlier on in the race when he was running as high as 2nd place in the early stages after the restart behind the, not the restart really, after the safety car released them, and Verstappen really still managing to hold his own against Häkkinen in 5th place.
Now we are at half distance now, lap 27 out of 55. Here is the order and here are the gaps. Michael Schumacher Ferrari leads David Coulthard McLaren by 47 seconds. Rubens Barrichello is 10 seconds behind the McLaren and gaining. Jos Verstappen and Mika Häkkinen are having the battle that you can see for 5th position. In 6th place is Ralf Schumacher, 10 seconds behind the two that you are looking at, and going very, very quickly indeed in the Michelin-shod Williams BMW. 7th is Frentzen.
And Verstappen there losing the back end of the car as he went for the downshift. He's still trying to hang on to it around the outside and does so beautifully. Really kept his head well there, Verstappen.
As they come up to Mazzacani in the Prost, leading Jenson Button, and they are down in 14th and 15th positions, about to be lapped by the Arrows and the McLaren there. So if either of those two balk Jos Verstappen, this is Mika Häkkinen's opportunity to get past the Dutchman.
Yes, and any of those drivers are not really used to having an Arrows cruising up behind them and lapping them, so they may not realise initially what's going on there.
And it's starting to rain again. They're all out on grooved tyres now, as far as I know, and with the rain coming down, we face the prospect of the race changing again as they have to contemplate coming in for wet weather tyres, but it depends how wet it is. I remember in the past as Jos Verstappen goes past Jenson Button, who holds up the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen behind him. He was on his racing line, he couldn't move, and now Mazzacani is going to yield to the flying Arrows with the Asia Tech engine, and Jos Verstappen goes past. Mika Häkkinen has got past Button. Mika Häkkinen challenges Mazzacani, goes through on the inside, and Button is right with the McLaren as well. Now these 4 cars are on 2 different laps, but it's a great race.
It is, isn't it? And Häkkinen really getting terribly badly balked there by Mazzacani. Mazzacani finally getting out of the way, and Jenson Button saying thank you very much. I'll have a little bit of that. So Button moving through then up into 14th place.
On lap 28, Schumacher leading Barrichello by an incredible 64 seconds now. And the fastest lap we have in this race is Michael Schumacher, 1 minute 41. So he's about 2/3 of a lap ahead of the man in 2nd place, his teammate in the Ferrari. David Coulthard, 18 seconds behind Barrichello.
Of course, why is Michael Schumacher over a minute ahead? Well, they put wet intermediates on during the pace car, and he stayed on them. He has not come in the pits to put on the slicks, and he is still easily by over 3 seconds faster than anybody else on the racetrack. So those inters working beautifully for Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, it's not just that he's a superlatively good driver with incredible reflexes and who is magnificently fit and gigantically experienced. He uses his loaf. He thinks all the time. It never ceases to amaze me how a top Formula One driver can devote about, what, 90% of his, no, not 90%, an awful lot of his talent to thinking about what's happening as opposed to just driving.
And they're really having to tread carefully out there, Marion. Look at Ralf Schumacher now homing in. He was 5 seconds a lap faster than Häkkinen on the previous lap, although we did see Häkkinen getting caught up in the back markers. And Ralf there clearly finding some more grip on this slightly dampening racetrack that we've got at the moment. Light rain out there, but once again it's Michael who's on the perfect tyres.
And 10 out of 10 therefore to Jos Verstappen in the Arrows, who is staying ahead of the double world champion from Finland. Michael Schumacher, lap 29. Now they're closing up on Tarso Marquez in the European Minardi. He's in 13th position. His teammate Fernando Alonso is out of the race. Mika Häkkinen has a look at Jos Verstappen, and they're all past the Minardi. And Ralf Schumacher having a look at Mika Häkkinen as they come down the straight. Now this BMW's got colossal grunt, and he goes past. So Ralf Schumacher moves ahead of Mika Häkkinen and takes 5th position in the Malaysian Grand Prix.
Well, that was amazing. Häkkinen didn't bother pulling over to get in the way. He just looked out of the side of his car as the Williams whistled past him. Amazing.
And the Williams whistles up on Jos Verstappen. And I think in the mood that Ralf Schumacher is in, and with that tremendous power behind him, he's going to go past the McLaren in a way that the Arrows in a way that Mika Häkkinen and the McLaren was not able to do so. But Jos Verstappen holds on, he's getting the power down. Now they're closing up on Fernando Alonso in the second of the 2 Minardis, who is in 12th position. The gap between them is shrinking rapidly. Jos Verstappen has got to start planning his tactics now for lapping the Minardi in such a way that he can prevent Ralf Schumacher there from getting past him. Now there is the Minardi about to be lapped by the orange arrows and the white and blue BMW as Mika Häkkinen falls back.
Yes, I mean, Ralph's really fighting that Williams, no doubt about it, but his lap times are pretty impressive. He's matching now the two Ferraris up front, and the rain must have eased off again now, because once again they're back on that sensible, slick pace on a dry track, so that the Ferrari mechanics, they're ready. Now finally Barrichello matching Schumacher's lap times. Will they think about pulling Michael in for a set of slicks? And that will be at the end of lap 30 for Michael Schumacher, finally going to those slicks.
And the moment of truth is coming now for Jos Verstappen as he comes up to the Minardi, and which moves over and lets him through. Nice bit of driving from the inexperienced Fernando Alonso, a star of the future if ever I saw one. Ralf Schumacher having another look at Jos Verstappen as they turn into the final corner on lap 30 out of 55, turn 15. Now Ralf Schumacher is close enough this time, ideally, to be able to get out of the slipstream of Jos Verstappen, who looks into his right mirror and sees that yellow helmet right behind him.
Not quite close enough. Michael Schumacher, race leader by some 67 seconds, James.
As I said it, Martin, lap 30, bought himself 6 laps with that safety car period. They're putting the slicks on. What they've been trying to do is push it towards the one-stop fuel window. And as you can see now, all this fuel going in. Yes, he's fueled through to the finish. 12.8, he's fueled through to the finish, and Coulthard is not. Coulthard, I believe, will have to stop again.
And you saw the mechanics reach deep into the side pods to clear any debris out of them.
I'm not sure Coulthard will stop again, James. If he started the race with a lot of fuel on board, he wouldn't need to stop any longer. Even if he stopped early, he wouldn't need to refuel for much longer than Michael Schumacher, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. But Schumacher clearly then will retain his lead. He had 67 seconds when he came in. He's going to lose about 27, 28 of that, so he'll still be in the lead by over half a minute. On the, and that's a wet tyre tread that's just fallen apart. So somebody, we just saw the tail end of that car going in the pit lane. Somebody that's down the final straight, and it is
one of the Minardis.
It is a Minardi, yes, has stayed out too long. Stayed out too long, Murray, on those wets, and thrown a tread basically.
Well, we've all seen truck treads on the motorway when we're driving. That's an unusual sight for a Formula 1 driver. But Michael Schumacher has rejoined in the lead ahead of his teammate Rubens Barrichello. And there is Tarso Marquez with the European Minardi people swarming round him, changing his tyres. And that's Luciano Berti having a go at David Coulthard.
That's to unlap himself if Berti gets through there. And the Michelins, which Berti is on, of course, really are working well at this stage of the race. But I don't quite know where Berti came from there, whether it was Coulthard lapping Berti and then Berti sort of having a bit of a faint stab back up the inside, or whether he really is homing in on Coulthard. We'll have to wait and see.
But what an absolute blinder of a race that Holland's Jos Verstappen is driving. Look, Ralf Schumacher has dropped back. He's staying ahead of Mika Häkkinen. There is the Jordan behind Mika Häkkinen of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So you're looking at 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th together. Verstappen, Schumacher, Häkkinen and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And Michael Schumacher continues, of course, to lead this race on lap 32 out of 55. And Ralf Schumacher has yet another look at Jos Verstappen, who again gives him the Dutch equivalent of, "Oh no, you're not my friend." Moves across, which he's entitled to do. And Ralf Schumacher has got to think again another day. Look at the gap between 4, 5, 6, 7. Very little.
Yes, Frentzen homing in. He's some 2 seconds faster than that trio in front of him. And what are we going to see here? We're going to see it's a puncture actually on the Minardi, and later on it throws a tread. That tread gets left in the middle of the final straight. A dodgy situation to get out there and recover that, although the marshals will have a very good and long view down the track. Look, that'll have to be picked up, and that wants gloves on it when it's picked up, because that'll be extremely hot. So Verstappen then creating a little bit of a traffic jam behind him.
If they've got they just haven't got... now...
That was a very late, very late attempt there from Ralf, and Verstappen will be doing well if he can. There's no space for him there, so Ralf really a brave one, and left Jos Verstappen to avoid an accident.
who stays ahead of Mika Häkkinen. So Ralf Schumacher moves up into that place held by Jos Verstappen, up into 4th place. But Jos Verstappen still very much in the points, now with Mika Häkkinen breathing down his exhaust pipe, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen doing the same to the Finn, Mika Häkkinen. Look at that yellow Jordan as they come round the right-hander. He's having a go at Mika Häkkinen.
I don't think there's enough braking zone into 4, and no, he can't make it in there, but Häkkinen clearly getting out of shape in turn 2 and giving Verstappen a bit of breathing space in the arrows, and Frentzen a look at him. But anyway, Häkkinen manages to keep what currently is 6th place.
Now the bung has been pulled out for Ralf Schumacher. He's got a clear track ahead of him. We're going to see the power of that BMW engine. We're going to see the way the Michelin tyres hang on. We're going to see the way that superb Williams chassis handles the going here at Sepang, because the gap is ever increasing and Mika Häkkinen still can't get past. Race order then, lap 33 out of 55. Michael Schumacher, after what we believe is his final pit stop, leads his Ferrari teammate Rubens Barrichello by 28 seconds. David Coulthard is a further 25 seconds down the road, 3rd place. You've just seen Ralf Schumacher move up into 4th place, and the battle there is between Jos Verstappen in the orange arrows and Mika Häkkinen for 5th and 6th. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the yellow Jordan is behind them in 7th place. And he is 18 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli in 8th position in the 2nd Jordan. Fisichella is 9th in the Benetton, and Jean Alesi is 10th in the Prost. And with that news, we leave Sepang, but of course, as ever, we'll be back. Lap 34 out of 55, and whilst this is the race on the track for the positions held by Verstappen 5th, Häkkinen 6th and Frentzen 7th, the man who is really flying here is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, who is in 4th place and gaining on 3rd position David Coulthard at the rate of about 1.4 seconds a lap, and the gap between them is about 12 seconds. So there's going to be real excitement there, but it's still Michael Schumacher out on his own, having had his final pit stop, we believe, leading his teammate Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari by 25 seconds.
Well, Häkkinen just can't find enough straight line speed, even in the slipstream of Verstappen's arrows, and he can't stay close enough through 14 to have a good run. Plenty of straight line speed then in the arrows, so he's going to have to make a do or die effort up the inside, as Ralf Schumacher did in the end to pass Verstappen. But as soon as Ralf was released, you're right, he's now the fastest man on the track, down in the 1:45s, hauling in David Coulthard at 1.5 seconds a lap. That's going to be the scrap for the final podium position, assuming the 2 Ferraris have no further problems. So a good scrap shaping up there then, but Verstappen still hanging on in front of Mika Häkkinen there. That's 5th, 6th, and with Frentzen just in tow, 7th place.
Have you seen Tom Walkinshaw here, Martin?
Haven't seen Tom this weekend, no, he's probably listening to us at home.
Tom, the boss of the Orange Arrows team, if you're watching, Tom, we're hanging on for you, and I'm sure you are sitting there biting your fingernails, because Jos Verstappen is doing a terrific job for you, as has everybody else at Leafield. The Arrows is really superb here.
Yes, and while we were in the break, Fisichella dropped out of the race with some kind of mechanical problem by the looks of it. So Fisichella now out of the race, and we are down to just, well, we've still got 14 runners left. We haven't had that's the first car to fall out for a while.
And Frentzen is now starting to give Mika Häkkinen a hard time. And Australia's team, Australia and Italy's team, the European Minardi team, has got both its cars still in the running. Marquez is 14th out of 14 and Alonso is 13th out of 14, but they're both doing terrifically well to stay in this race as they have done. And now Ralf Schumacher is again doing a fastest lap of this part of the race. There's still about 4 seconds off the fastest lap of Michael Schumacher, which was on lap 3 in the Ferrari when conditions were very good indeed. But Now, Mika Häkkinen has got Frentzen behind him and Verstappen in front of him as they come out of the final turn, down the Kuala Lumpur straight into turn 1. And look at the arrows. It's not losing anything to the Ferrari, to the McLaren.
Not at all, is it? And it's Häkkinen now coming under pressure. Ralf Schumacher just on a massively fast lap of 1:43.6, still hauling David Coulthard in. And also Barrichello beginning to close that gap down, but it's still a full 24 seconds that he's behind teammate Michael Schumacher.
Well, last year the order was Michael Schumacher, the winner, David Coulthard in second place, Rubens Barrichello in third position. Those three drivers are up there in the first three positions on the podium this year in a different order, because Barrichello is second and not third, and Coulthard is third and not second. But it was Mika Häkkinen who was in fourth position last year, and now we look for the first time for some time at one of the Ferraris. It's that of Rubens Barrichello, soldiering on very quickly, but 24 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, who has got this race by the throat. Rubens, third in Australia, and the Ross Brawn team have produced a magnificent motor car. We've been used to Michael Schumacher trying to lead Ferrari back to victory as Giancarlo Fisichella walks in. Not a good race for him, and of course he was well out of the order in Australia too. It's a hard season for him, and they're all closing up now on Luciano Berti, who is in 10th position in the arrows. He moves over. He lets Verstappen through, he lets Häkkinen through, and he will let Heinz-Harald Frentzen through.
Yeah, Bertie in the Jaguar. Remember, Fisichella started at the back of the field. We're watching him walk back in after he confused himself on the start line and parked on the wrong side of the racetrack, and they had to abort the first start of the afternoon because Fisichella was asleep.
Well, you're not seeing much of Michael Schumacher because he's out on his own, 24 seconds. But the man to watch at the moment, as I keep on saying, is Ralf Schumacher. He's on another fastest lap. He's got the gap between himself and third place David Coulthard down to 5 seconds now, as we watch this terrific tussle between Holland's Verstappen, Finland's Häkkinen, and Germany's Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Two Germans in the top 7, one Brazilian, one Scotsman, one Dutchman. Now this is Tarso Marquez. He's down in 14th position, and coming up behind him is the Prost. Both the Prosts are left in the race. Mazzacani from Argentina is in 12th position. John Alesi is in 9th position. There is Rubens Barrichello, who has lapped this battle between Mazzacani in the blue Prost and Tarso Marquez in the black European Minardi. And it's Marquez who is pulling away.
So Ralf Schumacher then, he's on another hot lap. He's going to have the gap down to 2-point-something seconds, I would imagine. 2.3 it is, and another new fastest lap of the race for himself. That is Ralf Schumacher, and now just 2.3. He'll be up behind Coulthard before the end of the lap that they're on at the moment. But this is still the scrap behind them for 5th, 6th and 7th.
Now they're all on slick tyres, on groove tyres, which require the driest part of the track. When you look down from the helicopter, you will have noticed a light grey line on the tarmac all around the circuit, and really they're having to stick to that, because if you move off onto the wetter stuff on these groove tyres, the grip will diminish. You'll get wheel spin, you get enormous deceleration when you take your foot off the accelerator in these cars, and you can very easily spin out of contention. And it's probably that, as much as anything else, that's making it so difficult for Mika Häkkinen to do anything about Jos Verstappen in front of him.
Now where is Ralf Schumacher? He is so hooked up. He's over 3 seconds faster than anybody else, including his brother Michael now. This stage of the race, with the track just now slightly damp, it's Ralf Schumacher that is absolutely on the move. And he's been homing in last time round 2.8 seconds quicker than third place man Coulthard, and still line astern then 5, 6 and 7.
Now the interesting thing about that is that Ralf Schumacher is on the Michelin tyres. Michael Schumacher and Barrichello and Coulthard are on the Bridgestones. So the first three are on Bridgestones. The fourth but fastest is on Michelin's.
Now I can tell you why, because Ralf Schumacher, I believe, looking out of the pit, and he's through. Sorry, he's through in 13.
And Verstappen doesn't give in. He tries to go through on the inside. He's trying again. Jos Verstappen is a fighter every inch of the way. Mika Häkkinen got past him. Jos Verstappen has refused to give way and refuses still to give way. Runs wide. And Frentzen goes through on the inside. He's going to take both of them. No, he isn't. He takes Häkkinen. Häkkinen, far from gaining a place, has lost one. And Frentzen now is going to have a go at Jos Verstappen. Wow!
Yes, Häkkinen then so deep into 13 and 14, clearly lost momentum on the exit. Jos said, right, I'm going to have another go at you, and stuck with it. And this is Ralf Schumacher. That's why he was so fast. He was low on fuel, but still extremely quick laps there from Ralf. But that'll take the pressure off of Coulthard. But he's still a half a minute behind the Ferraris up front, and Verstappen then hanging on to 5th place. Great drive from him today.
Yeah, the incredible Jos Verstappen has seen Mika Häkkinen off. Now, is he going to do the same to Frentzen? But look at the gap that's extended between him and the yellow Jordan. The battle for 5th, 6th and 7th position continues to rage.
I think Verstappen's right rear gave Häkkinen's left front a bit of a slap as he just lost the back slightly under braking for that turn 15, but I don't imagine either car will have any damage. James Allen.
Yeah, while all that was going on, Martin, Ralf Schumacher, the reason he was flying beforehand, he dived into the pits. He had pitted on lap 17. They rolled the dice on a two-stopper, and it's not worked for them today. He's slipped down to 7th place now, but the reason he's been able to make such good progress, apart from the fact that Michelin's are working well here on this warm surface, is his straight-line speed advantage from the BMW engine. 9 kilometres an hour faster than either Ferrari or McLaren. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, and talking about championships, which we now can start to do, because we're on lap 40 out of 55, as Mika Häkkinen has a look at Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Ferrari, of course, are on a potential 16 Constructors' World Championship points, 10 for Michael Schumacher if he wins, 6 for Rubens Barrichello if he is second, and that would give them 30 points in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren are on a potential 5 points.
Here we go again with a replay then in turn 15, and yes, Jos just getting the back, stepping out as he was downshifting very, very late on the brakes, obviously to try and keep up the inside, and well, Frentzen there really almost having a chance to jump the pair of them at the same time, but didn't quite have the commitment to make it up the inside of Verstappen as well. We're going to take a short break.
So, as Rubens Barrichello on lap 42 out of 55 sprints out of the pit lane after his final 3rd pit stop, the question is Mika Häkkinen, who has similarly been in for a tyre change, going to be in the points at the end of this race? It doesn't look like it at the moment.
Barrichello had a 33.8 second lead over 3rd place man Coulthard before he made the pit stop, so quite clearly he will remain in 2nd place. The big question is, how much fuel does Coulthard have on board, and indeed Michael Schumacher up front? We think Schumacher can go to the end. I suspect Coulthard may be able to go to the end unless he's swapped strategy during the race, but let's see now. Verstappen still on the racetrack now, up to 4th, Frentzen 5th then. Ralf Schumacher rejoining after his stop in 6th, Häkkinen 7th. James, what can you tell us?
Yeah, splash and dash there for both Barrichello and Häkkinen. In Barrichello's case, I think it was also a little bit to do with the fact that he may be running some pretty high temperatures. They've been trying to clear those radiators at both of his pit stops from the moment where he went off. My calculations are that Michael has enough fuel to go to the finish. Now, I said I thought Coulthard had to stop again, and you said you thought he didn't. And I've been doing a bit of maths on this. You might well be right, provided that Coulthard started with about 110 kilos of fuel at the start of this motor race, because he only took 60 on lap 27, and it doesn't work out any other way. So if he started that heavy, he could go to the finish, touch and go, but it's quite a possibility.
I don't think these cars carry 110 kilos. I'm not sure what the capacity of the McLaren is, but that would be absolutely at the very, very top edge. So Coulthard may have to do a short fill towards the end. So he's 3rd at the moment. So Schumacher leads then by it was 18 seconds before Barrichello's next pit stop. Then Coulthard, Jos Verstappen, Frentzen 5th, Ralf Schumacher 6th, and already flying again now, Ralf Schumacher. Now he's up and running with a new set of tyres.
The point of all that Martin's just given you is that Mika Häkkinen is not, repeat, NOT in the points. He's in 7th position at the moment, and you look now at Jos Verstappen in the arrows, still staying ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, still on a potential 3 World Championship points for a 4th position, which he will have richly deserved. His teammate Enrico Bernaldi, the Brazilian, in his 2nd Formula 1 race, long since disappeared from the Malaysian Grand Prix. Indeed, he was the 5th retirement when the conditions were just about at their very worst.
Well, Verstappen, we think, will stop at the end of this lap. The Arrows mechanics are in the pit lane. He, of course, is the only Arrows driver in the race. Bernaldi dropping out very early on, getting caught out when the rainstorm came, and there are the Arrows mechanics in the pit lane. So Verstappen will finally have to yield to Frentzen via the pit stop, and the signals we're getting back from our information from the F1 ITV pit crew is that Frentzen does not have to stop again.
Well, it's Tarso Marquez in the European Minardi, who is 14th. He's been lapped several times already. He's about to be lapped by Verstappen, who will be coming in at the end of this lap from 4th place to give that position to Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Some reward to the German for hanging on the way he did, and for scrambling past Mika Häkkinen the way he did. Marquez moves over, past goes Verstappen, past goes Heinz-Harald Frentzen. They go down into the reverse straight, the Penang straight, which leads up to the final corner on this lap, and you can expect to see Jos Verstappen go straight on into the pit lane, and for Heinz-Harald Frentzen to move up a place. There it is. Heinz-Harald Frentzen now in the Jordan is therefore in 4th position. His teammate Jarno Trulli is down in 8th position, with Mika Häkkinen 7th ahead of him, and the gap between Verstappen and Häkkinen was about 10 seconds, so Verstappen is going to lose positions, and he's going to have a struggle to be finishing in the points. Very tough lap.
Be careful if you're taking rip-offs off your visor doing slow speed. That's when they get sucked into your own radiator scoops or your own brake ducts or something. They're much better ripped off at high speed, making sure then that they go straight out. And that's a good stop from the Arrows boys, just 7 seconds. Clearly he's only got to have fuel for a further 12 laps, but a very, very good run there. And Häkkinen has now just set a new fastest lap of the race on your screen now, significantly faster than anything he's done up until now, so clearly enjoying a change of tyres.
As Rubens Barrichello must be enjoying 2nd position, admittedly 41 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, but 6 seconds ahead of David Coulthard on this, the 45th lap in this 55-lap race. And the question now is not so much who is going to be 3rd, that will be David Coulthard, not so much who's going to be 4th, which should be Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Their lap times are virtually identical, but who are going to be 5th and 6th? At the present moment, it looks like Ralf Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen, but Mika Häkkinen is putting on a tremendous charge in the McLaren.
Depends how much fuel Coulthard's got on board. As we've said before, really it must be touch and go for him to get to the end of the race. If he has to pit, I don't see him being able to maintain that current 3rd place podium position. We're taking a short break.
Lap 46 out of 55, which was originally intended to be a 56th lap race and was shortened by 1 lap after the problems with the first start. And it looks at the present moment as though Ferrari are going to finish 1st and 2nd to give Michael Schumacher his 6th successive victory. And if they do, it will increase their already substantial lead over McLaren in the Constructors' Championship by 11 points. It will give Michael Schumacher 20 World Championship points. David Coulthard will still... I'm just trying to work out in my mind. No, Rubens Barrichello will almost certainly move up to 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. But on lap 47, it's Schumacher leading Barrichello by a massive, you're looking at Barrichello now, by a massive 38 points. And there is the McLaren of David Coulthard, only 4 seconds or so behind Barrichello.
His last 2 or 3 laps, Coulthard has clearly found a bit more grip. The track looks like it's virtually dry now, as you can judge by Mika Häkkinen's new fastest lap of 1:41.4, and Coulthard now really beginning to home in. That gap down to just 4.5 seconds, as you said, Murray. He's inching 3 to 5 tenths per lap out of Barrichello, but will Coulthard have to pit again for fuel? If he does, Frenson's only 19 seconds down the road and could well steal that third place.
Much better season start, Martin, for David Coulthard than last year, because it looks as though he's again going to finish substantially ahead of his World Championship teammate.
Yes, it does. I mean, I think it's been a very similar weekend to Melbourne for him. Had a bit of an iffy qualifying session, and then a very mature and professional drive to make the most of a bad grid position. Led this race for a long time at the beginning, kept his head in all of the chaos in the downpour to be first into the pits of the main pack to get those wets on. So Coulthard then really, as you said, a good solid drive, but he's got to sort that qualifying out.
Yeah, he started 6th in Melbourne and finished in 2nd place. Started 8th here. Looks as though he's going to finish 3rd. But very, very solid, praiseworthy drives to give him World Championship points by finishing on the podium. And Louise Goodman has got some news for us.
Yeah, just to touch on what Martin was saying about Coulthard there, and Willie, won't he have to come into the pits again? It's a fairly similar situation down at the Jordan garage. There are a few tense faces down here. They are hoping, I stress, that he will be able to go to the end of the race, but they're not entirely sure. We saw him doing some slow lap times earlier on. I was questioning whether there was something wrong with the car. In fact, he was just conserving fuel. So, as I say, rather uncertain at the Jordan garage whether Frenson will be able to make it to the end of the race, but we're all keeping our fingers crossed down here.
Thanks, Louise. Well, the first 6 positions are looking fairly solid at the moment on lap 48 out of 55, with that 36-second gap between the 2 Ferraris. David Coulthard is lapping virtually the same, to within 100th of a second, the same speed as Rubens Barrichello. He's not gaining on him at the moment. Heinz-Harald Frenson actually is lapping in exactly the same time as David Coulthard, so the second, third and fourth are maintaining a very steady gap. 4.5 seconds between Coulthard and Barrichello, 19 seconds between Frenson and David Coulthard, and Ralf Schumacher, after his stop, is still in 5th position, but 8 seconds behind Frenson and 6 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen, who is lapping much, much quicker. He's lapping about 1.5 seconds faster than Ralf Schumacher and will be looking ideally for 5th place, although I can't see him getting it.
Yes, now Ralph's got a bit more fuel on board and a different set of tyres. He has got the pace, but it seems we're on the drier track. It's where the Bridgestones are starting to come into their own again. So unfortunately, with that sort of out of sync two-stopper that Jos Verstappen did in the Arrows, that's put him just out of the points in 7th place. So and not lapping particularly quickly at this time either. Now it's bone dry. The McLarens are suddenly on form.
Yeah, and Bridgestone have got 5 of the top 6. Michelin have got 1 with Ralf Schumacher in 5th position, Williams, BMW, and you're looking at the master himself, Michael Schumacher, on his 49th lap. Really, he's just got to keep it nice and steady. Tour around by his standards, 1 minute 44 compared with his fastest lap of 1 minute 42. And 2 seconds isn't very much in terms of time, but if you're a racing driver in Formula One, it's taking the edge off your ultimate performance quite a lot. Another new fastest lap then by Häkkinen at 1:40.9, and well, Michael Schumacher with a ½ minute advantage over a Ferrari 1-2 at the moment. You wouldn't imagine that, would you, as they were bouncing across the gravel and completely out of sync. Spent a minute in the pits trying to sort out which tyres they were going to put on. It looked like their afternoon was completely trashed, to be honest. Yeah. But somehow or other, they're way out front. I remember right at the beginning of the broadcast saying that people who should know better are writing McLaren off, but don't you believe it? Well, McLaren got up there, but things have gone awry for them since. Ferrari are definitely on top at the moment, but you can never discount the Woking team. They've won, they're used to winning. Ron Dennis, the boss, says he feels pain whenever he finishes second. He'll be in pain after this race, but it will motivate the whole team even more than their normal motivation, and they are a very motivated lot at Woking to get to grips with the prancing horse team from Maranello, Ferrari.
Yes, Barrichello now edging back out on third place man Coulthard. You're watching Häkkinen, but just to remind you how, despite now swanning around at the front, just minding his own business, Michael Schumacher still over half a minute in the lead, and that is because they've moved onto intermediate tyres, and it's just absolutely the right tyre. Then changed it to effectively a one-stop strategy for Michael Schumacher, and it's all been too easy since then.
Yep, Mika Häkkinen crosses the line. He's on his 50th lap now. He's just passed the Prost of Jean Alesi, which is in 9th position and has therefore been lapped. There are 7 people on the same lap. They are Schumacher leading, Barrichello second, Coulthard third, Frentzen fourth, Ralf Schumacher fifth, Mika Häkkinen that you are looking at in 6th position, and Jos Verstappen in the arrows, just out of the points by 1 position, is still on the same lap as Michael Schumacher, albeit 1 minute 32.6 seconds behind, which is very nearly, it's the difference of about 10 seconds between being lapped. But to finish on the same lap as Schumacher here, and today's conditions will be no mean achievement, as you look at Ralf Schumacher, 5th position.
And look at Mika Häkkinen then, just 2.4 seconds behind last time over the start-finish line, and already some 1.1 seconds up on this lap, hence the gap you can see before your very eyes. And what a turnaround in a few laps, isn't it? It was just 7-8 laps ago that it was Ralf Schumacher climbing, despite, albeit with less fuel on board at the time, climbing all over the back of that McLaren and just breezing past it down the straight. And now the roles are very much reversed as Häkkinen homes in on a possible 5th place and 2 World Championship points. An awful lot of brake dust coming out of the back of Ralf Schumacher's Williams there. I wonder if he's beginning to suffer with brake problems.
BMW power, it says on the back of Ralf Schumacher's Williams. Mercedes-Benz power for the McLaren behind him. The 2 German Titan engine and car firms battling for this position for 5th place. Now Ralf Schumacher's got an enormous amount of grunt, but Mika Häkkinen has closed up on him all the time. Ralf Schumacher has got to now make his Williams as wide as he legally can on the track. He mustn't weave about to prevent Mika Häkkinen getting past him. He can move about a reasonable amount, but if he does it too much, he'll be shown the blue flag. Well, he's not doing it at all at the present moment. We're on lap 51 now, 4 laps to go at the end of this one. The 2 Ferraris still way out ahead as Ralf Schumacher in the Williams, Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren close up on a competitor in front of them. I just saw the car, I couldn't identify which one it was, but I think it's Mazzacani in the Prost. There it is as they go round the long right-hander at turn 3. And Mika Häkkinen visibly closing up. He's right on the rear wing of Ralf Schumacher now. Ralf turns in through the left, through the right.
Yes, this is 13 leading into 14. And I believe Häkkinen has the much better car under braking, so if he can stay anywhere near the gearbox of that BMW Williams, which he is just about managing to do, coming onto the dry line now, and well, he's not really close enough. Look at the black dust pouring out of that Williams under braking, just pouring out of the front wheels, and I'm sure that Ralf has got some kind of brake drama. Maybe the fronts are getting a little bit too hot. You can see them glowing heavily as they go into turn 9, but this is down to turn 1.
Bit of heavy oversteer from the Williams there as the back stepped out as Ralf Schumacher straightened it up out of turn 15 and went into the straight. They're on their 52nd lap now. 3 laps to go at the end of this one. The 2 Ferraris still way out in front. David Coulthard is not making any impression on them from 3rd position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan is still in 4th place. This is the battle on the circuit, and what a battle!
And Coulthard is slowing down now, so obviously no sign of the McLaren mechanics in the pit lane. Coulthard now knocking his pace off. He knows he now can't catch Barrichello or Schumacher in front of him, and definitely in a fuel conservation mode. He's got 16 seconds back to Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but Häkkinen then still in 6th place, Ralf Schumacher 5th.
Now, the one question in my mind is Mazzacani going to get in the way of Ralf Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen as they close up on the Argentine driver in the frost to lap him again? He's been lapped twice already.
Now, one of Häkkinen's favourite overtaking plays, he's not quite close enough, is into this next, turn 13. He's not close enough on this occasion, but he pulled a couple of nice strokes there last year and earlier on today too, but still look, he moves out of the slipstream. He doesn't want to go on that wet patch and cool his tyres down, but he's just losing the toe then.
Yeah, so turn 15, last corner of this lap.
Interestingly, the Williams have got better traction, hasn't it? Although he's always going to be on the throttle pedal at least a car length ahead when he's in front, but it does appear that the Williams has got better traction than the McLaren.
Which is why he may well get the advantage when he comes up to Mazzacani out of this slow turn 2, which they take at about 50 miles an hour, having closed on it at nearly 190 miles an hour, and it is quite incredible how late they can back off and brake. Now, there's Mazzacani in the frost. He is in 12th position in the blue car. He moves over, Schumacher through, Häkkinen through, battle over between those three. In fact, it wasn't a battle at all. And Ralf Schumacher now on his 53rd lap has got to keep this up for another 2 laps to prevent Mika Häkkinen getting an extra point. 2 points for 5th position, 1 point for 6th place, and it's still 2 McLarens in the top 6, 2 Ferraris in the top 6, 1 Jordan in the top 6.
I would think Ralph's got a long brake pedal in there. The front discs are very, very hot. We've seen it a couple of times now. The camera's homed in on Ralph's front brakes. That means they're probably well over 800 degrees centigrade at the end of the braking zone. And Ralph always losing out under braking to Häkkinen, but has got the traction and the grunt down the straights to make it stick at the moment.
And of course, 1 Williams in the top 6, and you are looking at it. The unfortunate Juan Pablo Montoya disappeared on lap 5 of the 55-lap Malaysian Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher is now on his penultimate lap, 54 out of 55, still just under 30 seconds ahead of his teammate Rubens Barrichello, as you watch Ralf Schumacher continuing successfully to stave off the McLaren Mercedes of Mika Häkkinen.
So the big question, do you risk 1 point to try to make 2? And that's what Häkkinen's facing at the moment. Does he? Because the only way he's going to pass him is a wild stab up the inside into probably 13 or 15, something like that. Maybe 9 if he can stay anywhere near him on the exit of 8. But he may risk 1 point by running into him to take the extra 2.
Well, common sense says no, but now Michael Schumacher from Hörth in Germany, although he currently lives in Switzerland, is on his victorious way in the Ferrari. You're looking at him now. He's driven a quite superb race, and I seem to be saying this all the time these days, as I do about everybody at Ferrari. They are definitely not in the ascendancy. They are on top at the moment. They fought so hard and so long to stay ahead, get ahead of McLaren. They got ahead in the Constructors' Championship the year before last. They won both the drivers and the constructors last year. This is going to be Michael Schumacher's 6th successive win. He won the last 4 races of the year 2000. He's going to have won the first 2 races of 2001. He is looking increasingly invincible, but as I've said many times before, anything can change in Formula One. McLaren will fight hard to close the gap between themselves and Ferrari. They have an enormous amount of pride, but Michael Schumacher is the man at the present moment. He's not very far off from the closing corners of the 3rd Malaysian Grand Prix, the 3rd time we've been here in 15 months to this quite magnificent facility, undoubtedly the best in the world. And Michael Schumacher is coming up now to the last corner to win again in Malaysia, to take 10 Drivers' World Championship points. It's not who's going to win, Michael Schumacher. It's not who's going to be second, Rubens Barrichello. It's not who is going to be third, David Coulthard. It's not even who is going to be fourth, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, as Michael Schumacher wins in Malaysia. The question is, who is going to be fifth? Is it going to be Ralf Schumacher or Mika Häkkinen?
Yes, so 6 wins then, Murray, for Michael Schumacher. 6 consecutive poles, 6 consecutive wins. That's only beaten by the great Fangio, isn't it? For 9,
yep.
Ascari, sorry, for
Ascari,
9,
yep.
for 9 consecutive wins. Coulthard goes over the line for yet another podium. The same 3 men on the podium, slightly different positions, and Ralf Schumacher, and only 3.8 seconds behind Frentzen. Look, Ralf Schumacher is going to keep Frentzen 4th, Ralf Schumacher 5th, Häkkinen final point in 6th.
What an incident, Phil, what an eventful Malaysian Grand Prix. They were worried here that they wouldn't get a very impressive attendance, but in the end they've got one. Thousands and thousands of people from overseas and the home country Malaysia have come to see a truly thrilling and exciting race after one of the most exciting qualifying sessions I've seen for a very long time. We're going for a break and we'll be back to give you a roundup. Victoriously into the Parc Fermé drives Ferrari's Michael Schumacher, having achieved 6 wins for the Maranello team in succession, to beat Nigel Mansell's long-standing record ever since 1992, and to close up on the great Alberto Ascari, 9 wins in succession, 1952-53, another Ferrari driver. Thumbs up from Rubens Barrichello, who was making pretty optimistic noises about how close he was getting to Michael Schumacher as recently as yesterday, but he actually finished 23 seconds behind him.
Yes, of course, Barrichello having to stop a second time, Michael managing to convert to a one-stopper. No doubt about it, that very long safety car period played very much into the hands of Ferrari. It was looking farcical up until then, both cars sliding off on a bit of oil and water after Panis's BAR had blown its engine, and then spending forever in the pits trying to find some tyres for them. They put absolutely the right tyres on, and there you see the top 10. There were only 14 finishers in this race.
Might as well tell you what they are, because behind the top 3, Schumacher, Barrichello and Coulthard, finished Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen to make up the top 6. 7th, and he really deserved better, was Jos Verstappen in the Arrows, ahead of Jordan's driver Jarno Trulli. 9th was Jean Alesi for Prost, and 10th for Jaguar, Luciano Berti. 11th for Benetton, Renault, was Jenson Button. 12th was Gaston Mazzacani, so both the Prosts finished. In 13th and 14th places, both the European Minardis of Fernando Alonso from Spain and Tarso Marquez from Brazil finished the Malaysian Grand Prix. So that meant all the others retired, of course. Fisichella, Villeneuve, Heidfeld, Bernaldi, Montoya, Irvine, Panis and Raikkonen. And the Drivers' Championship now sees Michael Schumacher 10 points ahead of a tie between David Coulthard and Rubens Barrichello. And in 4th place, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, 15 points behind Michael Schumacher. 5th is still Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber, ahead of Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. And as I said, Ferrari now have a 19 point lead in the Constructors' Championship over McLaren. And after 2 races last year, the gap was even greater. So McLaren, who finished 2nd in the Constructors' Championship last year, will be a long way from despairing. But those 2 are already substantially ahead of Jordan, who are 3rd, Sauber, who are 4th, Williams, who are 5th, with only 3 Constructors' Championship points between them. But what do you think about the Bridgestone-Michelin battle?
I think Michelin have shown very well this weekend. Ralf up on 3rd place on the grid, and at some stages of the race, clearly, easily the fastest man, albeit with a slightly lower fuel load at the time. Really, unless you were in a Ferrari today, you were only aiming at third place, Murray. That was going to be your best shot unless they had any problems, which they appeared to be having, but overcame them with a very calm approach, you have to say. They managed to keep their heads. I mean, as you'll see in the various replays later on, Michael Schumacher sat in the pits in a queue behind Barrichello, and they didn't appear to have any tyres for Barrichello. Luckily for them, it was under safety car conditions, and therefore the rest of the field were being slowed down dramatically. Michael Schumacher then up onto the top step, and no dramas or tragedies today, and I think we'll see the full celebrations.
Yes, let us remember with humility and respect that the Australian Grand Prix was marred, and it was a very serious Michael Schumacher over the top step, as opposed to now in front of Dr. Mahathir of Malaysia. Drivers on the podium in Malaysia as were there in Australia, and again it is the Italian national anthem for the constructors, Ferrari. After his 46th victory, Michael Schumacher is still 100 World Championship points behind the top all-time winner of points, Alain Prost. But he receives his trophy from Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, who is the Prime Minister of Malaysia, with tremendous joy. Another one for the Schumacher Trophy Cabinet, and Ross Brawn, the brains behind the technical direction of Ferrari. Another great victory for him and his men. A second place again for Rubens Barrichello, who was third in Australia and is proving to be a very, very worthy teammate to Michael Schumacher. David Coulthard, second in Australia, third in Malaysia after a fine drive, although, as Martin says, must improve in qualifying.
Yes, he's compromising himself there, but a really solid and professional drive from DC today. But as I said, unless you're in a Ferrari, you could only hope for third place. But it's looking ominous, isn't it? A double all-red front row in the first two Grand Prix. No reliability issues for them. A first, a second, and a first and a third. And we head now to yet another continent of South America, so hardly any time. All of the kit goes straight from this racetrack over to Brazil, so hardly any time to develop these cars. Ferrari on a roll.
Yeah, I think Malaysia, that McLaren are still going to be struggling there, but they will, I am confident, come back. But there they are, the victorious quartet, three of them from Ferrari, one of them from McLaren. A fabulous weekend in Malaysia.
Murray, thank you, Martin. Ross Brawn blinking there behind the glasses, a bit of champagne in his eyes. He won't worry about that, though. Deservedly up there after some brilliant tactical thinking again from Ferrari. We've just seen a couple of hours of compelling sporting entertainment. We'll be looking to hear from those top three, and there is Tony Jardine's view of the thriller in Malaysia. right thinker Ross Brawn has done it again. Let's go straight to Sepang and talk to Ross. Here he is with James Allen.
2 minutes live in the Premiere studio over there.
Okay, I know you've got to go to the podium, I'll keep it quick.
Okay.
Ross, some very smart moves today. First of all, the minute queue, though, for the drivers here, you must have had your heart in your mouth.
Well, it was my fault. With all the confusion of cars falling off, I called Michael first and Ruben second, so we had Michael's tyres. So I screwed up. The only thing we could do then is make sure we got the right tyres on the right car, because then we would have had a big problem if we didn't. But the intermediates was a good choice, and we recovered.
Do you think that's what won the race for you today?
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, did you switch from a two-stop to a one-stop after that? You seem to push it, obviously, on the fuel window quite a long time.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that, James.
Go on, Ross.
We had a problem with Ruben's car because he picked up a lot of grass and started to overheat. That's why he had to make his extra pit stop. But I'll tell you when I retire.
If you get 9 lives, you've had one of them today, then, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Straight from Ross Brawn to the press conference.
We heard you saying to Rosso it was a bit boring at the end. Was it boring at the beginning?
I didn't say boring. No, you must have misunderstood something. I said it won't be as easy for the future. We have to keep pushing. No, you can't call this race boring. It was very exciting. I mean, I thought it was all finished by whatever lap number when the rain started, and I went off the circuit. I was seeing the barrier already very close and thinking that's my part now. And then I saw Rubens just coming next by the same corner. So actually we were lucky that the car stood in shape and didn't get heavily damaged, and we were able to do the race we did finally.
Now, once the safety car came in, you were about, I think, 5 seconds a lap faster than everyone else. Why was that?
First of all, I think we had intermediate tyres on compared to some drivers had rain tyres on, and I think that it's a bit of a difference. Although I was behind Jos, and Jos, he was flying. I mean, he was on rain tyres. I think he was the fastest car basically out there, and I thought it would be a lot easier to overtake him, but he was going very well, and he made it very difficult to me.
How much of a gamble, and whose decision was it to put you on intermediate tyres in the middle of a monsoon?
It's a driver's call actually, and we knew that if at all it's going to be a shower, we might struggle for a number of laps, and it will be better for the end, and that's the way it was.
Thank you very much, Michael. Rubens, you too were involved in those incidents in the first 2 or 3 laps, and it culminated in you having a very, very long pit stop. Talk us through all that.
Well, you know, I told Ross like 1 lap before we went off that he was actually speeding down a bit, and when I saw Michael going off, I was too close to him. My car was handling quite well at that time, and then, you know, out of turn 5, I saw him going straight. I had no time to do anything. If I had a spin at that time, I would have actually collect Michael right in the middle. So I was lucky to recover and, you know, get going. It was a shame that, actually a pity that I couldn't pit stop, go to my pit at that time, because, I mean, we took the decision to stay on the track, and, you know, all of a sudden I think I spun 3 or 4 times again. There was a lot of water on the track, and but we made the good choice on the tires, and unfortunately the pit stop took so long. I mean, it was going quite well. All of a sudden I saw one of the mechanics putting a slick tire on my right side, and the engine was already too hot. Everything was running hot. I saw Michael behind me. I didn't know what to do, so basically I had to calm down and go again.
Now, I think at the end of the day, Michael made 1 stop and you made 2. Was that always the plan? That's petrol stops. Well,
I mean, I tell you, Michael is a hell of a driver, and but I wish I could have a little bit of his luck as well, because I think when he went off, he didn't collect as much stones as I did, so I had to stop once more to clean everything basically. So at the end of the day, he got it.
I think during the course of the race, you actually lost both your barge boards. How did the car handle with those items missing?
You know, I think we have a good car, a fantastic car actually. I mean, the best car I ever driven, like I have said. Once I came on the radio to tell that I saw some bits of the car flying, and that's basically was some of the barge boards and maybe the brake duct or something. But I run off the track 3 or 4 times, so the cars are very robust, but I mean, they're not off-road cars, so basically that's the story.
Thanks, Rubens. David, you started 8th, but at the end of the safety car period, you were 1st. Was that great driving or good luck?
Well, I wish I could say it was great driving, but of course it takes a lot of luck in those circumstances. And when I saw both the Ferraris going off, that gave Trulli, who was running in front of me, a bit of warning, and it gave me some warning. So we stayed on the track, and obviously it was quite clear we would have to come in, even though it was only half wet on the track, and the other half of the circuit was completely dry. But coming into the last corner, both Jarno and myself spun, but I managed to keep it going and come into the pits. And at that time, we thought it was the right decision to go for full wets, and clearly with that amount of water, it was. But as the safety car then came out, you can be sure that you're not going to start driving again with so much water on the track. So in hindsight, intermediates would have been a better tyre, because we had to run the wets a long time, and I was losing a lot of time, obviously, to the Ferraris when I was waiting for the slicks.
Again, the two of you, Mika and yourself, made a different fuel stop strategy, 2 stops during the race and 1 for yourself. Was that always planned?
No, we're flexible in the circuit, especially given especially where I qualified, and certainly for Mika as well. You have to try and leave an element of flexibility there, because we knew the weather was a little bit dodgy, so it was 50-50 whether we'd have a wet race.
Started well this season. There's confirmation about those successive wins. 6 out of 6 for Michael Schumacher, but the only driver who has won all 6 starting from pole. Tony, tyre choice absolutely crucial today.
Critical, but also if they'd checked the weather at the airport for the last 4 out of 5 years.
What about those forecasters?
It's rained on March the 18th, and I'm sure they would have checked on that and expected the monsoon to come in. But tyre choice was critical, and of course these Ferrari guys do everything together, front rows of the grid, and they go off together as well, and then finish 1-2 together after. Look at this, what happened here. This is what they're talking about in the press conference. Panis had gone off there early. We suspected some oil on there, but oil and water don't mix. There's the double red. Deep inside goes Schumacher. Past him goes Rubens Barrichello. Gets back onto the track first, and there's Schumacher just about struggling to get back on. Dropped down to 10th and 11th after the safety car came off. Conditions worsening. Villeneuve goes off backwards through the gravel trap, promptly followed by Nick Heidfeld in the Sauber. He's also beached and out of the race early on. And there's Enrique Binoldi, the Brazilian, going off as well. So early casualties, and these guys got out of jail. Jarno Trulli, who led after this behind the safety car, and right behind him, see him just coming off, there's David Coulthard, as he said, and they both got into the pits very quick.
And then when the Ferraris went into the pits, I mean, Barrichello had over a minute stop, didn't he? And we thought it must be up for the Ferraris.
Well, it was shades of 99 in European Grand Prix. That was the same sort of thing. Dry, wet, dry, wet. Johnny Herbert won that one. You remember when he was cloud watching. But coming in, it looked like bedlam, because there's a queue. Look, right, out goes Barrichello, and Michael Schumacher's got to queue up. Ross just gave us the answer to that as well, apart from Schumacher choosing the intermediate tyres. You know, it's like where they said afterwards in Italy, they put the big tyre in the town square. And so we found your tyre. Remember after it was lost by Irvine, and he went down the order.
And then very soon after the restart on the back of the safety car, we realised that Ferrari had actually got it absolutely right.
Yes, superb. And, you know, Ferrari went round, they got through on the intermediates, and you know, Schumacher came all the way through, and he was slicing through the field and comes through behind Verstappen, behind Coulthard. But the restart there, Coulthard got the jump on Frentzen extremely well. But Verstappen, for me, he was the driver of the race.
Very unlucky not to make a point.
Very
for the
unlucky.
arrows,
He went from 18th to 6th on the start. It was unbelievable.
Michael Schumacher, though, I mean, got past David Coulthard and he was away and gone. Another masterclass from him.
Yeah, superb. But this is where we see the overtaking as well, because he'd come up on Verstappen and got past him, and then he was just eating in on those tyres onto David Coulthard. At that point we thought, you know, McLaren had got it right. They got onto the wets, they got their drivers into the pits early, as had Benetton. And there it was, the guy just scything through the field. Meteoric rise through the field for Michael Schumacher.
First time, Tony, we've ever had a rain-affected race in Malaysia, but crikey, this is some sport when it rains, isn't it?
It's great. I mean, this was wonderful entertainment, superb driving from 22 of the world's best. And there's no question about it. You know, Schumacher again proved that he's the rainmaster.
Is he starting to look almost invincible now, Schumacher, or will things swing round?
Well, you've got to remember he had a 22-point lead with 9 races gone into last year, and then McLaren came back at them. They had successive breakdowns. What we've got to watch is when traction control is introduced from Spain. That could change things around. So what Ferrari are trying to do is in these early races get as many points stacked up as possible.
I just heard that Ron Dennis is complaining, saying it was very, very dangerous for Ferrari to use those tyres. What's your instant reaction to that?
Well, I think that the risk factor is down to the team concerned, and it's down to, you know, the skill of the drivers. I didn't see any problem there for Michael Schumacher on intermediates, did you?
Not really. OK, thank you very much indeed, Tony. Of course, we'll have more reaction to the Malaysian Grand Prix when we rerun the race just about lunchtime today, 1:30. Highlight show just before midnight tonight, and as always, the highlight show repeated ITV2 tomorrow night at 7. What a fantastic Grand Prix. This has been well worth the early start. Ferrari and Michael Schumacher, the main players once again. It's a record then, 6 wins out of 6, all from pole and counting. Bye-bye. And you're back with us, reflecting the Malaysian Grand Prix. So a Ferrari 1-2 over there in Sepang. Let's hear from some of the drivers, starting at the very top.
We have a 1-3 and a 1-2 finish in 2 races. We have been pole position and second position in qualifying for the first 2 races. Basically 6 wins now in a row from last year on. And that means that Ferrari is the team to beat, and they have really done a hell of a job with that new car.
We just spoke to the driver of the pace car, and he just told us that he was having trouble to keep the car on the track. And I tell you, on the intermediates, after the pit stop, I fell off so many times. After that, on the same lap, I fell off probably 2 or 3 times. I had no drive. I mean, it was difficult to see where I was going. And so I made it to the end. I must be happy.
The minute queue though for the drivers here, you must have had your heart in your mouth.
Well, it was my fault. With all the confusion of cars falling off, I called Michael first and Ruben second, so we had Michael's tyres. So I screwed up. The only thing we could do then is make sure we got the right tyres on the right car, because then we would have had a big problem if we didn't. But the intermediates was a good choice, and we recovered.
Do you think that's what won the race for you today?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that the key decision was obviously the intermediates at the pit stop. You know, at that time when I came down the pits, I didn't realise the safety car was out. You know, obviously I knew the conditions were bad, but that in itself probably wouldn't be enough for them to throw a safety car unless some cars were going off. We had that conversation before, so that was the downside about being at the front of the train. So you know, that obviously meant that after the pit stop, as we found out this morning, the wets once the track dried were just, you know, undrivable really for those conditions. So we lost the time there, but anyway, nonetheless, from 8th in the grid, you've got to be happy with coming through and getting a 3rd place.
So confirmation of the result of a magnificent race in Malaysia. Michael Schumacher, the master. Barrichello, a 1-2 for Ferrari. Coulthard, the British driver, on the podium again. Then Frentzen for Jordan, Ralf Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen scoring just 1 point. So 20 out of 20 for the reigning world champion. Coulthard and Barrichello tied up in 2nd place, and Frentzen, Heidfeld and Ralf Schumacher. And the constructors, Ferrari away on 30 points. McLaren the only others in double figures there. Now, Tony, the choice of tyres during that Grand Prix, absolutely crucial.
Yeah, critical. I mean, Michael Schumacher must have been shouting for them. So he'd read the conditions, deciding what he wanted. Ross Brawn's already said there was a bit of a mix-up there, but they had some time to put them on. And that was the match winner. That was the winning tyre.
Let's take a look at the start before the monsoons came down.
Incredible start by Michael Schumacher. Look at him away in the Ferrari, but Rubens Barrichello, this newfound aggression. If you remember, he clashed with Heinz-Harald Frentzen in Australia. Look, he's about to clash here. And touch of wheels with Ralf Schumacher. Look at Trulli up on the inside, trying to force his nose through. And there is Ralf getting spun out after that touch. And Frentzen gets through from 9th place. Coulthard got through from 8th place and got ahead of Häkkinen. It was a wonderful start.
What astonishes me is that they spend fortunes on all these weather forecasters and gadgetry, and nobody clocked it that it was going to rain.
Well, if they'd have called the airport, they'd have found it that 4 times over the last 5 years, on March the 18th, it monsooned down. It's true. It's a fact. We called the airport, of course, Jim.
Perhaps they should have called you, but when the rain came, nobody could stay on the track at all.
No, nobody could stay on the track at all. I mean, Panis had already gone off at this point and perhaps spread some oil, but the water and the oil, they don't mix. Off went Michael Schumacher, a double red there. He couldn't believe alongside him he sees Barrichello. Barrichello gets out of the gravel slightly quicker and goes past his teammate. There is Michael Schumacher struggling to get back on track, and they're now down in 10th and 11th place. Shortly after that, off goes Jacques Villeneuve, a long way into the gravel trap. Montoya's already gone off. There's Nick Heidfeld following him off and out of the race in the Sauber with the Ferrari engine. And there is Enrique Bernaldi in the other arrows, the Brazilian, going deep into the gravel. And while they tried to go round and into the pits, Trulli, who's leading now, he spins off. He gets out of jail, but just look behind him there. David Coulthard also spinning, but staying on the grass, and those two's got round, and McLaren did a great job getting them in first and getting them out.
Sure, and when they had the pit stop, I mean, Barrichello's, I think, lasted over 70 seconds, and when you get a stop like that, you normally think your race is done.
Yeah, but this is shades of '99 in European Grand Prix, wet-dry race and all the confusion, and Barrichello then has formed a traffic jam. There's a queue behind him as Michael Schumacher has to wait for his time. Surely at this point we're thinking, that's it, it's all over for Ferrari, but no.
Safety car out, and on the restart, David Coulthard right up there, but it was very soon evident that Ferrari had got it right.
Yes, lap 10 after this time. There goes the safety car in, and Coulthard's at the front there, and he's got the jump on Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but Verstappen behind there is already biting away at the back of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Just look at that. See that? Verstappen, for me, was the driver of the race. Absolutely superb. 18th to 6th just on the start.
Very unlucky not to score a point for the arrows there, Jos Verstappen. And then Michael Schumacher slipped past David Coulthard, and it was a masterclass again from the world champion.
But again, he was on the right tyres, again driving superbly, again the rain master. He's come past Barrichello, he's come past Verstappen, and David Coulthard did his best to resist him for as long as he could. David Coulthard on the full wet weather tyres, but he couldn't quite get the temperature round the outside, making it look very easy indeed. Goes the master, Michael Schumacher.
Was it a case of Ferrari thinking quicker once again than McLaren, or is there more to it than that?
No, I think that is the brilliance of Schumacher, feeling everything through the car, through his backside, through his feet, just making that delicately balanced choice of what tyre will work in those elements. A bit of a gamble, of course, as well, you know, that the rain held off.
Got to mention David Coulthard here. He had a bad time in qualifying, but on the podium twice in 2 races, he's going pretty well.
No, I think it's a good start. He's equal second in the championship with Barrichello, so he's not that far out. He's 10 points behind Schumacher at this stage, but he's made a good start to the season, considering McLaren's problems.
Just looking back at the race as a piece of entertainment, you couldn't take your eyes off it, could you?
It was wonderful. It had everything for everybody. I mean, it had the drama, it had the politics, it had the spins. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, cheers, Tony. Thank you very much indeed. Well, quite an act then for Brazil to follow in a couple of weeks' time, but that is our next port of call, qualifying live. A bit later than normal on the Saturday, 4:30 our show starts, Saturday the 31st of March, and the race live round about tea time on the Sunday, 5:20, highlights just before midnight. Next stop, Brazil then. Can anyone stop the runaway world champion? Good night.
If you'd like to know more about Formula One, the website address sponsored by Foster's is www.itv-f1.com.
And you may like to know that the official ITV Formula One Grand Prix guide is now available, priced at £9.99.